Good evening. It is I, Grovelly Poncho. And I have been promoted from sponsor race recapper to modcast content recapper. What an honor. Here is the stuff that was said about Maude Flanders by the brothers Brendan and Nathan. In relation to her Season 7 appearances. First up, it's Season 7 Episode 1. A premiere appearance right off the bat. Who Shot Mr. Burns Part 2. Written by Bill Oakley and Josh Weinstein. Directed by Jeffrey Lynch. First aired May 21st, 1995. Grovelly Poncho.
Clip 1. Now, we've had this hanging over for weeks and weeks. It's been more than a month since people saw part 1 of Who Shot Mr. Burns. Clip 1, Who Shot Mr. Burns? We open to Kent Brockman. He's saying at 3 p.m. on Friday, local autocrat C. Montgomery Burns was shot. We see the police around the body. We see them put an oxygen mask onto him and put him in the ambulance. Right there next to the ambulance, next to Jimbo and Ned, we see Maude. Her hand goes to her mouth. She has a blank, shocked, maybe look on her face, and Ken Brockman continues following a tense confrontation at the hall, and there she is. As he says those words, it cuts straight back to Maude. Are they giving us a clue? Who knows?
I think we should just run with the whole thing that she shot him for the rest of our continuity, because her reaction here is very much, what have I done? She wouldn't care this much about, like maybe Season 2 Maude would care this much about Mr. Burns, because she thinks of him as like a happy car buying, or Season 3, but shopping trip sort of Maude, Mr. Burns kind of guy.
The good old days.
Yeah, but now she's just watched him laugh at a dog and point a gun at a kid and turn out the sun. So I don't think she would be this shocked. I don't know. She is pretty easily shocked.
No, but it seems suspicious that the camera goes onto her. And if I was, a conspiracy theorist on the YouTube, I'd be using this as a prime piece of evidence.
And she wasn't there. She wasn't there with the crowd at the end of the last episode, but she's there with the crowd now.
Exactly.
So she didn't go home and leave like she usually does. She was still around somewhere. So yes, I think we can conclude that Maude Flanders did in fact shoot Mr. Burns.
And got away with it for all these years. And now of course she's dead, and so that case justice will never be served.
Unless a rich man himself employed t-shirt cannon workers on a specific day. But it would be easier just to have a shot.
It's a highly elaborate revenge should that have taken place.
Yeah.
And it does seem like that would let Homer off the hook for Maude's death, and we certainly don't want to do that. Spoilers.
The next episode, Season 7, Episode 3, Home Sweet Home Diddly Dum Doodily, was so epically huge that it required a just the content cast of its own. So check that out at your own perusal. Moving on to the rest of Season 7 though, we have Season 7, Episode 4, Bart Sells His Soul, written by Greg Daniels, who knows Creed Braden, directed by Wes Archer. Who may know Creed, we aren't sure. One of the finest episodes of television ever created.
The Bart Sells His Soul episode is a fantastic episode. Thankfully, Maude plays no part, so we could focus on the few minutes where Mo comes in, ka-ching, and he's got the stink lines and everything.
Yeah. He doesn't appear in the church either. I checked because this is the episode where they sing Iron Butterfly, and
yes.
she isn't there for that.
Inagada Davida. It's a great song. Clip 1. Moe's Tavern is now called Uncle Moe's Family Feedbag Restaurant. We see the Flanders family sat at the table. Ned says, now Rod, you can order anything you want for your big 10-0. He says, Todd, right? It's Todd's tent.
Well, this is sort of the only kind of defining thing we have, I think.
But he says Todd, not Rod.
I think he says Rod. I think the sound quality, I'm going to work on that. The sound quality of the video I sent you was pretty low, but I'm pretty sure it's Rod that he says.
So we think it might be Rod's birthday.
Yeah, but Todd is two space years younger than Rod, is what he says at some point, but he's also the same age as Bart.
Yes. Well, we've been, in our early episodes, we got ourselves right into the quagmire of that. Let's steer clear for the time being. Ned says, Rod, you can order anything you want for your big 10-0. Maude is looking on with her sideways duck face and smiling. They're excited. Todd is excited by the $1 million fries. And the waiter looks around. And I think it's Todd who's holding the menu, and he's excited by the fries, which is why it confused me that he said Rod. Though I'm no expert. It could well have been Rod.
I believe it is.
The waiter looks away as the $1 million fries are ordered. The waiter says, "Uh-oh." The alarms go off. Maude picks up the menu and says, "Mo gets so excited when you order his $1 million birthday fries. He just has to celebrate." I think Maude's reading that from the menu, and she's smiling wide-eyed. On cue, Mo kicks open the door with sparklers in his hand and a basket of chips, fries on his head. "Here I go, here I am, I'm Uncle Mo, thank you, ma'am." Thrusts his face right into Maude's face, and she recoils with her teeth bared. He then turns to Ned. "This'll be a treat." Then to Todd and Rod, thrusting his face and putting basically his head down on the table and shouting, "Uncle Mo, here I am while you eat." And then they have to eat the fries while they're still strapped to Mo's head, I believe.
Yeah, Rod just starts to eat the fries really slowly, one by one, until Mo has to ask him to take the basket off because it's burning his head. It's a good scene. It's good. This is our first Mo and Maude direct interaction, I think. But he doesn't seem too interested. He's just doing his job. This is all, I imagine TGI Fridays and the things like that are just maybe become popular at this time, and that's what they're kind of going for. So it's weird that I think the reason that the Flanders family are there is that they saw a family restaurant and thought, we'll give it a try. They probably didn't look into the fact that it was, they've only been to Mo's Tavern once from what we can see, so they probably don't remember it all too well.
I believe the last time they were there, they were watching Aerosmith.
I believe so. So it's a very different atmosphere this time. It's nice that they're into trying. They want to help Springfield's businesses and try out stuff. And Maude does a good job of reading the menu. It's pretty much the only point I had about her in this scene.
She nails it. She's very fluent. She's very clear. And she sets up Mo's entrance. And Mo, we believe this is before Maude has come onto his radar. So maybe this is the first time he's really taken a glimpse of Maude. He thrusts his face right into hers. But he thrusts his face into everybody's. And it isn't long before he's exhausted by this.
Yeah, it doesn't take long to... In the actual time of the episode, in like Simpsons time, I think it goes from his sort of it being open that night to him losing his mind and him getting everybody to clear like the repo men or whatever to take everything away and scrap it within the space of about 3 hours.
Well, you see him, he has to go through some pretty bad stuff in an attempt to make a bit of cash. So we get to clip 2 and Mo, it comes over to Ralph Wiggum's table and gets sprayed by a brutally hard water pistol in the face several times. The Flanders are 2 tables down behind. Only Rod seems to be watching this unfold with wide-eyed confusion, shock. We just see the back of Maude's head. Basically all we'll see now for the rest of this episode. And my question is, what food is Maude enjoying while she avoids this madness that Mo is going through?
I did think about this, and the only kind of speculation I have is that Mo, in a scene prior to this, recommended something to Marge called something along the lines of like Mo's special hobo chicken, and he added secret hobo spices. So maybe he recommended that to Maude as well.
I can't imagine Maude would go for something entitled Mojo Chicken. Not Mojo. Hobo chicken.
Maybe not. But Marge's response was to just say très bien.
Really?
So
thinks it's fancy. I think Maude would be likely to go for the safest item on the menu, maybe just a green salad, which for Mo would probably just mean a bit of lettuce.
Yes, it was Uncle Mo's hobo chicken chili.
Oh, it does sound delightful.
So yes, we haven't. We know that Maude's not a vegetarian. That's all we really know. So we know that meat's not off menu. Maybe fish. That's quite a religious thing to eat.
It is. Maybe she'd go for some fish.
I wonder if she did.
A nice
I wonder
cod.
if she did.
A nice cod.
A nice cod.
A nice cod.
A nice cod.
A nice cod. A nice cod.
A nice cod.
Yes.
I do wonder if she said hello to her potential cousins, the Wiggums, or whether they just maybe that's why she's got a head to her. Maybe they were arguing at the time and she wanted to pretend she hadn't seen them.
Yeah, maybe she wants to turn away from Sarah. We don't get to see Sarah Wiggum in this clip, but we do know that there's very good evidence, and we'll get the hobo on this, the hobo robot. There's very good evidence that they're cousins, and I really want to know why they both ended up in Springfield. Maybe we'll find out later. Clip 3. We go to Sherry and Terry, the twins, and they're at a table, and once again Mo is out there doing his dance. Here I go, Uncle Mo. Thank you, Mom. Janie's there and some other random kiddos, and Mo is exhausted, pushing his face into everybody's life. We get more of that back of the head Maude treat for us. But my question is, from this angle, it looks like we've switched to the other side of the restaurant, and yet Maude's still got the back of her head to us. What's going on there?
Yeah, it sort of seems like they moved from the corner. There was also a brief clip that I forgot. I sent it you like a couple of days ago, but I forgot about it myself. But that runs out of the restaurant from like an aerial shot. And you see once again the Flanders, a small image of the Flanders sign, but they don't react to Bart running past. They just continue to sit static, not looking at us. So that was clip 1.5.
I put that as clip 5. Marge is angry at Bart. He shouts, "I can't take it anymore. I want my soul and I want it now." And he runs for the door. We see the Flanders like way up from above. And once another shot of Maude's head, it almost seems like they've placed it so that no matter where we look, we just see Ned's face, but more the back of Maude's head. Seems like a weird choice.
Yeah, could be laziness. The back of her head is easier to draw. It's just a big cloud, basically. So, but yeah, there's nothing really to say other than, a couple of, last week, this kid was the child, and now they don't even care that he's running away.
In most of these clips, it seems like Todd is really interested in Sherry and Terry, like, forcing Mo to sing the song several times. Todd doesn't take his eyes off them. Maude doesn't even turn her head.
No, there's somebody she's avoiding, but I don't know who. I do like Sherry and Terry as well, and you get to see the mum for the first time. And also, I wondered at one, I was like, why is Selma there? Then I realised it's because they are twins.
Ah, because Selma's in the next booth along, really. I don't think she's with with Sherry and Terry's group, is she?
I think so. She has a party hat on, I think.
That would be weird if Marge's sisters were there in that same restaurant with the birthday party of some small children. The only connection being that they were also twins.
Yeah, it is weird, but I think that's why. Yeah, she's avoiding somebody.
Who's she avoiding? And the question that's on my mind is, now what's she eating? Now what could she be enjoying after maybe she had some lettuce for a green salad? Maybe she had a nice piece of cod. But now what would she be on at this point in the meal?
Well, I believe maybe in this kind of situation, because they're out at a restaurant, it's more appropriate for her to order a dessert. Maybe the sort of no sugar rule is like it can be waived for special occasions. So maybe they all got a nice dessert, and she got to, eat what she wanted in front of her family for once, instead of gorging it in a closet.
Possibly, or maybe they all ordered a plain slice of bread as their dessert.
Maybe, with a glass of water on the side for dipping.
Exactly. Room temperature.
Yeah.
Clip 4. Mo is beginning to lose it. A little girl tugs on his apron and says, "Unky Mo." Mo is twitching. His eyes are going mad. "What is it, sweetheart?" "My sody is too cold. My teeth hurt." "Ah, your teeth hurt. Your teeth hurt. Well, that's too freaking bad." He goes all Jack Nicholson on him. You hear me? I'll tell you where you can put your freaking soji. And everyone gasps. All the families, Sherry and Terry's clan. We zoom in on the Flanders. They've all got their arms to their chest, like clasping their hands together, especially Maude and Ned. The kids are glaring at Uncle Mo, terrified, because they've never been here before. This is the first time the kids have entered into this place, and probably the last time any of them go in. You can correct me on that. Maude clasps her hands to Todd's birthday ears, although it's Rod's birthday. He shouts, "Ah, my freaking ears." Maude cannot believe this. She is distraught. Her eyes droop. Her mouth falls open. She stands. "Oh, let's go, dear." Todd is tiny. He's like barely knee high. Ned says, "I expected that type of language at Denny's, but not here." They head for the door.
Good. That was a good recollection of the scene.
I remembered it. I have a photonomic memory.
Excellent.
Photocopy of memory.
The Mo stuff's great. and you can just see her between his arms as he's losing his mind. So you can see her. This is the first time she is looking at him with the it sort of looks like she knows what's coming when, especially when they picked obviously the sweetest, cutest person, like this little girl, to deliver the news, because they needed the final straw to sort of, he couldn't just shout it like an adult man. It wouldn't have the same sort of anger behind it. So the fact that she sees this again, she's giving Mo a chance. The only thing she's seen him at town meetings, and he broke into a panic shelter a couple of weeks ago with the rest of town. But other than that, she doesn't really know him. She just knows, he's got a bar that hosts bands occasionally. So she's giving him a chance, and he's not. This is definitely where Maude decides how she feels about Mo, regardless of whether it's the other way around too.
Exactly. There's no honeymoon period like she had with Mr. Burns. From the very beginning, she knows that Mo's a sleazebag, but at least when she went to see Aerosmith, one of her favorite bands, we believe, at Mo's Tavern, at least she knew where she stood. But now, my goodness, this man shouldn't be anywhere near children with this filth coming out of his mouth.
And the more we do this, I've never really noticed before how impressionable Todd is. Like, it's sort of more of a character trait than I thought. He does, like, he's always the one, like, he copied Homer with the damn vegetables, and then there's a bit, I think it's in the Homer and Flanders one, but Maude isn't in it, where they like Ned, Rod, Todd and Bart watch Itchy and Scratchy, and I'm pretty sure Todd asks after, it might be Rod actually, one of them asks afterwards, should I poke like Rod with a sharp stick like the kitten, like the cat did.
Asking for
So he is quite, I'm surprised that she's this surprised.
I'm not. I think that no matter how many times Todd's filthy mouth lets one rip, I don't think Maude will ever accept it and be anything other than shocked to her very core.
And they immediately leave. They've probably already, to be honest, it seems like they leave without paying as well, unless you have to pay beforehand, but it doesn't seem so, because Mo just took us, before this little bit, Mo took a check to Snake and said, Snake said you weren't smiling, so we get our meal for free, which was one of the guarantees on the wall, and that's what kind of starts him losing his cool.
Yeah.
They just get up and go immediately. They just get up and go.
We're not going to pay for this food that we've eaten now that we're so offended.
The table, I don't know, you tend to notice these things more than I do, but was the table, did they have any food on the table at this point, or was it just an empty table?
I think it was empty. I don't think, other than the chips. But this is further down the line, so we're assuming they've had a nice bit of cod. Probably some lettuce and some dry white bread and tap water. So they do owe Mo a little bit of cash, but obviously his rudeness, Mo says, like, rude, has suggested to them that they can just do a runner.
Yeah, they have no respect for him, so they don't have to sheep again. This is one of those times where she isn't always sheepish. She's very much like, let's go, we're going, we're leaving. There's no debate about it, really.
Oh no, she makes the stand. It's very clear that Marge is taking the ka-ching. Maude is taking control of this situation, and she gets up and she leaves. Just out of interest, do the Simpsons also leave at that point?
I don't remember, actually. I'm pretty sure you don't see them leave, but then the next time you see the sort of, like I said, the next time you see the bar, it's being sort of all ripped out, and Homer's there with Barney, but Marge, Lisa, and Bart's already run off, and then Marge, Lisa, and Maggie, I don't think you see them leave.
The reset button has been pressed, and the Flanders, Rod's birthday was ruined. Do you think they did anything else for Rod's birthday?
Yeah, but something mild, like probably a special edition of Bombardment or some cottage cheese on cucumbers.
Something refined, something that ain't going to get the temperatures too high.
Yeah.
But fun. Shall we move on from that episode, Bart? Maude sells her soul.
A nice bit of cod. Next, it's Lisa the Vegetarian. Written by David S. Cohen. Directed by Mark Kirkland. First aired the 15th of October, 1995.
Lisa the Vegetarian. They are in. Homer comes around the corner and hears some country bluegrass music going on, and he gasps. There's a sign saying Flanders Family Reunion Barbecue. Correct me if I'm wrong, but hasn't Homer lived there for a decade? He seems surprised by this, but let's say that he's forgotten that they've come across this at least 9 times before. But anyway, Ned shouts, "Here we go! Swing your partners to doodly fro!" And there are multiple multiple versions of Ned Flanders around, some with glasses, some bald, some with the mustache without, some slightly more ginger and brown, etc., etc. There's balloons and they're dancing joyously. We see a country Ned playing along, classic country cousin that I'd like to know more about in true Flim Flam Scrappy Doo style. The music ends and he says, "Alrighty dighty," and then Homer, I don't know if he does say that, but Homer is annoyed and he shouts, with his hands on his hips, he shouts, "Flanders!" The whole crew turn and wave, "Idly ho, neighborino," including Maude. Maude is there. She pops up, first time we've seen her, and she joins in with the entire mob to speak Flanderese. Homer shouts back, "Shut up," and everyone, to a man, woman, and child, shouts, "Oakley dokley." What's going on here?
This is a bigger flip than I anticipated because we have a lot of speculation to do with it. I believe you see Maude really quickly at the start when the music starts playing. I think you see her talking to someone.
Okay.
And then you don't see her again until she's away. But there are 3 women in there who distinctly. One of them just looks exactly like Maude, but with darker hair and a bit sort of bulkier. And then there are 2 other women who have to be Maude relatives, not Ned relatives, pretty much.
Okay, so here's what I wrote. There was a sleazy Flanders with a slightly larger, well-dressed Maude next to him. They seem like they're together now. We've had this out this week a little bit. I was thinking, like, did the Flanders and the Goodmans have a pact where their daughters marry off? If so, why haven't we heard about this before? Or why haven't we even speculated about this? You said maybe she invited some of her family along. Fine, but only the only the ones that are her age and size and look like her. So not Rex, not her dad or mum, unless of course they're hidden sitting down on a bench at the back. So okay, you're gonna have to sell this to me why this makes sense, because it doesn't right now.
I imagine that Flanders holds this barbecue, like you said, every year, and it's got to the point where at first maybe it's always been a Flanders tradition and Ned over, or maybe it moved year to year. Maybe this is Ned's first year doing it.
Very
so maybe
clever.
It goes
Good one.
Yes, so maybe it goes around. The Maude look-alike in question with the sleazy Ned, I would speculate that to me could be Maude's youngest, and she is single, and that is why Maude has invited her. And maybe she's just getting to know the sleazy Ned. Maybe the sleazy Ned is also a rogue.
Accepted. I had one more question here about if they are Goodmans, why do they join in with Ned's chant?
I think they just know what to expect now.
Shall we move on?
I have one more thing to say about Maude's actual appearance in this.
Okay.
I think this is the only time we hear her speaking like Ned, other than maybe later on. I remember the Halloween one we looked at, she spoke a bit more Flandersy, didn't she? Like goofy, roofy. But this is the only time I believe we hear her say like Oakley dokley or neighborino.
Yeah, and she does say it. You got to watch her mouth move. She waves, she joins in, which she doesn't always. She could have just stood there. I also had one point of when you look at Rod and Todd, and when you look at the difference between the Goodmans and the Flanders, and this was my question, is it mostly just the nose that separates them? You know, Ned has this big round Homer-esque Muppet Show nose, and Maude has this little cutie triangle nose.
Yeah, Ned has more of a classic sort of Simpsons look, and again, I'm interested in the design sequence because they designed Ned and Rod first, but I don't know if they also just designed Ned and Todd, and I don't know if they just designed Maude and Rod at the same time and just didn't use them for a season, or whether they only designed them. Like, I can't tell who is based on who, because they just made Rod look like Ned and Todd, and then they just kind of gave Maude Todd's hair, but the face again is just sort of supposed to be. That's how they try and convey sort of prettiness, I think, with the slender features.
Yeah, we've said that a few times, but both the boys have very round Simpsons-esque noses. They don't have the cutie, perky nose. But anyway, I feel we've spent a good amount of time on that 12-second clip there. We could go on, but we won't.
One of our bigger clips, I think.
It's huge. Clip 2, an unusual eagle-eye shot of Evergreen Terrace. We see Maude walking across the lawn towards the Simpsons house with a person that doesn't really look like Ned. Couldn't work out who it was. Is it Helen Lovejoy maybe? They're shuffling together. And that's it. It's like a second long. We see off auto going into the house, a bunch of cars parked outside the Simpsons house, and then a strange building to the right. And I wanted to ask you what that was as well. I think we confirmed recently that the Flanders house is to the left, not to the right. Although I still don't understand how the pants and the tree thing works. But anyway, what's going on there? Who's with Maude? They're heading to the Simpsons house for a barbecue, right? Who's with Maude, and what is that building on the right?
Yeah, it is Maude and Helen, I think, this was one of those ones that I only saw on like the fourth or fifth sort of viewing of this episode whilst looking for Maude. I kind of missed it. It's very easy to miss, so there's probably a few of these in there somewhere. But again, we're at the point now where the background characters tend to be somebody as opposed to like baseless, nameless. So we're in that kind of point now where she's going to be a lot more prominent in the coming week. And yeah, it's weird that she's coming from the Flanders house, but she isn't with Flanders family. She's coming with Helen for some reason. So unless Ned and the boys and Reverend Lovejoy have already gone ahead, and she's also got a little plate of food, I think. So she's taking something along, which is nice. And I've no idea what this building is on the right. If you talk for a second, I will have a look.
We can just pause because I can cut all of this out in post, as they say. So of course, I'm going to leave it all in.
This is not live. Oh yeah, the one with like the garage.
Yeah.
I think that is the Ruth Powers house, but it looks slightly different. It's usually, I think the Ruth Powers house used to be characters called the Winfields, which they were very early season sort of. Again, I re-looked at the mob scene from the Jebediah episode just to double check, and after we talked about maybe Maude being there, and there's like 5 characters in the crowd that are recognisable, and 2 of them are these Winfield, this old couple.
Okay.
And I don't really know what happened to them, but Ruth Powers gets the house from them. So I think, yeah, it's just Ruth Powers' house, but it doesn't look correct. Saying that, though, the president's house is across the road, and sometimes it's there, sometimes it's not. So things tend to change.
With both geography and temporality, time and place, don't they? These Simpsons.
I do think that the pants scene is correct as well. I feel like the back of the house, they throw them the correct way. Like it's just the angle of it, I think, that you see now. Yeah.
Oh, okay, maybe then.
I believe so.
All right, I'll give you all that. That's it for clip 2. Clip 3, we're in the Simpsons' backyard. This is probably stemmed out of Homer's rivalry with Ned and wanting to do at least as well as he does with the barbecue. Though of course Homer wasn't invited to Ned's barbecue, so
I'll explain the context a little bit if you want. Homer, just after that, Homer says to Ned, after that last Oakley-Dokley neighborino, Homer says to Ned, I can't believe you didn't invite me. And Flanders basically says, sorry, but you aren't Flanders, which is quite bold. And then Homer says, I'm going to have a barbecue that's going to be the best barbecue in town and you can't come, or something. Oh no, he doesn't say you can't come, he's just going to say that. And then Ned says, can I come? And he says, sure. And then says, no. And this is the culminate. It's sort of like a rivalry episode, but very tame. It's not got a lot of substance.
Yeah, because it's not the Ace story, it's not the real one. It's all just a setup for Lisa to talk about, to get preachy with their vegetarianisms, like all those meat eaters. You know what? Meat eaters are always talking about how they eat meat. I love meat. I love sausages and pies and things. Come on, give it a break. We know you eat meat. Just stop talking about it for a minute. Give it a rest. Give it a rest, carnivore.
Precisely.
Exactly. Where am I at here? Okay, so we see Selma and Patty, Lenny and Carl, Wiggum with no Sarah or Ralph. We see Marge, Grandpa, Eddie, Lou, the Hibberts. Maude is stood with Ned and Lovejoy and Helen, the moral caucus, you might call them. Mo standing with his 2 drunk friends, the baseball cap one and the one with a comb over. There's snacks on the table and the Simpsons kids are running around. I don't know if it's Bart and Lisa or it's just Bart and someone else. I couldn't tell. 4, the Lovejoys and the Flanders are basically just standing silently staring at each other. Now granted, we only see them for a second. Maude is doing her usual sideways staring off into space. What a conversation.
Yeah, I like that this looks like one of those sort of happier times moment that it's nice to see. Again, peak Simpsons sort of time. It feels comforting that everybody's sort of there. It's a nice little reunion for everybody. Feels quite homely. Like they're doing a pretty good job of this barbecue. Yeah, the bowling team, I imagine they're talking about is that coming up. So maybe this is, maybe these are the times that they talk about bowling strategies.
Could be. So you think Maude's having a good time there? She's not showing any emotion on her face. She's just standing silently. Is she casting judgment quietly on people, or is she saying, this is okay? This is how people should live?
I think she's having seems that she's part of the crowd, part of the team. She doesn't seem like she's not up for being there. Like, she brought some food along, she's spending time with her friends. She's not just kind of stood silently on her own, staring at other people talking like she will do at Homer and Marge's second wedding in the future.
Really?
Yeah, so at least at this point she is at least stood silently with other people, not just staring at them, stood alone in a corner.
Which, good. A big step backwards for Maude is what we can expect in future episodes. Clip 4, this is where it all goes down. So Lisa emerges with a bowl of something. Homer is cooking racks of meat on the barbecue. And there's a fourth cop, Wiggum, Eddie, Lou, and a fourth cop, who maybe you can tell me more about later. Lisa, very hopeful look on her face, and in her voice says, you don't have to eat meat. I made enough gazpacho for all. There's mumbles. The crowd are mumbling. Oh, what is that? What is that? Oh, we pan to see Maude, who sat with Lovejoy, Ned, Helen, the Hibbets, and Lenny. And over it, people are saying, you hear, what is gazpacho? And some cultured person says, I don't like gazpacho. Maude sits there with her lips puckered, looking somewhat confused. She doesn't say anything. And then we hear Lisa's voice, appearing to say, what is that anyway? But I don't think it's Lisa, it's somebody else. Lisa then replies, it's tomato soup served ice cold. The laughter begins, and Maude, to her shame, joins in. Barney shouts, go back to Russia, and Lisa angrily and dejectedly stomps upstairs to bed, puts the pillow over the back of her head, starts to cry, probably. Cut back to everyone happily eating. The dog is now licking the soup. Barney has a keg of beer next to his table, and we get a classic back of the head shot of Maude. This is just water off a duck's back to Maude. The mob's there. She's enjoying herself. And so what if they've made a small child cry?
Yeah, the child that, again, very recently she was the foster mother of. She is now just pointing and laughing at for having a slight difference of opinion. But again, Maude doesn't really like controversial things, does she? And I imagine being a vegetarian in 95 was
1995.
Somewhat difficult to explain. Or I imagine this was a similar. Barney's line is great as well, go back to Russia. The way he says it is very funny. And again, the fact that it's just aimed at this 8-year-old girl.
Yeah. Gazpacho is the Spanish, I think, isn't it?
Is it?
Yeah, it's not
It doesn't sound particularly rough, but so we can learn from this that Maude is definitely a meat eater, is the one thing we can add to her definitively. But she also doesn't say anything about gazpacho, so I'm under the impression that she knows what it is, but she's just keeping her mouth shut. She doesn't look as confused as everybody else, and she doesn't do any of the mumbling, but she isn't going to stand up and say, oh, this is what it is. Lisa, go ahead, I'll have some. She's just going to sit and laugh at her.
Sit and laugh at the child. But Lisa gets her own back in the end because she gets to hang out with Paul McCartney, I believe, in this episode, does she?
She does.
So that's
and I think he insisted that he would only do it if she remained a vegetarian, which he has done for the past, still one now, like 20 plus years later.
Just waiting for McCartney to finally die, and then they can have Lisa becomes a carnivore.
Just a full episode about eating plates of meat.
No plot, just Lisa sitting there eating meats in various stages of rawness.
Just grunting.
Like all those meat eaters out there who don't ever bloody shut up about meat.
Exactly.
We get it. You eat meat.
Yeah, but she looks like she's having a decent time. She's eating the food, she's participating, so that's nice. There isn't really much more to say about that one.
It's nice, except for the undercurrent of mocking those different from yourselves and also children. Clip 5, still at the barbecue. Ned stands, raises his cup. We see another classic Maude from the 3/4 back angle. Congratulations, Homers. Your cue is a huge success. A toast to the host that can boast the most roast, de-escalating that conflict. Ned. Lenny's nodding along. Maude not so much. She is barely disguising her disgust at Homer Simpson for no good reason. I'm reading into that a little bit, but she's not nodding when Ned makes the toast. Maude does raise her cup though. What's in there? Sparkling white or tepid water? She's got a goofy, relaxed look on her face. Suggests there might be a little something in that cup. She blinks. but her face remains stationary without expression. Homer laughs. He doesn't need Maude's respect.
Now, this is a nice sort of culmination to the first clip we looked at with the barbecue. In that Ned, this is what I mean about it being like a soft rivalry episode, because Ned comes to the barbecue, enjoys the food, and then I think Homer says thanks Flanders, which was sort of like a nice, like kind of weird moment. He's expecting to still politely say like shut up Flanders, but in like a kind way. But no, he just says thank you, and all is forgotten. So I believe that Maude may have been, bracing herself for him to do something like that. She didn't. Maybe she was taken aback when he said thanks Flanders. I still don't think she's drinking, because again we have a whole prohibition thing possibly next season for us. But I don't think, I'm firmly on the camp that she doesn't drink anything. It's going to have to take solid evidence to change my mind. So maybe she's drinking something that she would consider a treat. So like like a Pepsi Max.
Pepsi Max could be.
Yeah, and then she's gone after that. Lisa comes out and takes the pig away, then like smashes it away, so no one can eat the roast that Ned's just been talking about. Pans across at the crowd again, looking shocked, and pans across, and I think Maude and Ned are the only two people who aren't there still. So she's out of there. As soon as Homer said thanks Flanders, she's gone.
Counting the minutes until she could leave.
Seems that way. And then that's it for her role in this episode, I believe.
And that's it for the episode itself.
Next is Season 7, Episode 8, Mother Simpson, written by Richard Apple, directed by David Silverman, first aired November 19th, 1995, and also the first appearance of effervescent Glenn Close as Mona Muddy May Suggins Simpson.
So the doorbell rings. Marge opens the door. Lovejoy is there. So we got all four of them there again. We see a lot of the four of them together, I think, around this era. Like you said, the bowling's coming up. Lovejoy and Ned have their heads hung. They're holding a newspaper. Lovejoy's got a newspaper. There's a purple sky. Helen and Maude are just behind, holding quite large containers of food with, Maude has a glum look on her tiny face. It looks very small in this drawing. Lovely. Marge, we can't tell you how sorry we are. Marge, you have our deepest condolences, says Ned. I'm sorry. I'm just so nervous. I didn't mean any respect. Maude, meanwhile, does not move. She doesn't say anything. She doesn't blink. Neither does Helen, for that matter. Marge says, what are you talking about? Ned says, Homer's passing, blank face from Marge, away into death. It's some nice use of pauses there. And Marge says, what? Lovejoy hands her the newspaper. Maude's still absolutely stationary, and Marge replies, that's ridiculous. Homer's not dead. He's right outside in the hammock. And that's it. We basically got just Maude taking it all in without blinking or breathing or showing any signs that any of this had any emotional effect on her.
I think she's just been a dutiful neighbour at this point. The context is very strange. I think they went for a very over-the-top cartoony opening to the episode, because this is like the first scene of the episode pretty much, or the second scene, sorry. And Homer threw a mannequin of himself down a waterfall whilst all the power plant the power plant employees had all gone somewhere, and Homer threw himself down and he got shredded in this sort of big machinery. So he did that just to get out of the afternoon of work, and obviously the news had begun to spread around town, and it makes sense that Reverend Lovejoy particularly was one of the first to find out, and he made a call to Ned, and the four of them went round immediately. I think she's just sort of reflective in this moment of, is this, now that this has happened, is this what I actually, similar to Homer when he wished that Ned would lose the Leftorium. When he did, Homer sort of felt bad or blamed himself somewhat, and then now maybe that's what she's going through. Maybe she's thinking, wow, I've spent all this time wishing he were dead. Now that she believes that he is, maybe she feels remorse.
Maybe we'll hear about this in her diary. Maybe when she realizes that he's not dead, there's some relief, and then maybe the feelings of hatred rush back thoroughly. So this leads directly into the same part of the same clip, but the five of them walk out into the backyard so that Marge can show them that Homer's in in the hammock. They have a tiny barbecue there, so I wanted to ask if the Simpsons have two barbecues, because I'm sure he's using a big one in the last episode. Anyway, Maude lines up between Ned and Marge, and she has her hands clasped respectfully before her, but a somewhat annoyed look on her face, thinking like, what is Homer up to now? That awful man. I think she's not buying into the narrative that Marge is just mad. She's already thinking there's something going on. That's what I'm thinking. She's like, all right. Cut to the empty hammock swinging in the autumn garden. Ned says, oh, Marge. Maude is doing that kind of sideways glance through her eyes at Ned through like slightly squinted eyes, and it's like, and then Ned says, of course Homer's alive. He's alive in all our hearts. And then Maude leaps into action. She puts a hand on the shoulder, which seems to be one of her go-to moves. And without looking at Marge, she has these kind of creepy eyes and this unconvincing mocking voice. Yes, Marge. And then she goes for the double hand on the shoulders. I can see him. And she crouches slightly because she's taller than Marge. I hadn't noticed this before. She has a blank look on her face as Lisa skips past. And I noticed that Helen has not moved or blinked in either of these scenes. It's literally Poochie style, this single drawing. Like they just drew her once and just kept that drawing. I'm sure if you watch them walking in, they just slid the cell across. So Maude looks down at Lisa, and it's the prettiest Maude I've seen. She's got that's a good angle for Maude. Lovejoy hands Marge a card and says, I'm going to give you the card of our juvenile counselor. And Maude does like this kind of almost eye-rolling, condescending look at Marge. Maude doesn't come off very well in this scene, unless, of course, she fully believes or knows something that we don't.
I think, again, there's two ways to look at this. The way I looked at it was that she did think that Marge had instantly lost her mind because, again, she's not got a lot of respect for Marge. Like, I think she thinks that she has the potential to be a good person, but she will probably not be one. And that she's looking for an easy sort of, again, they took the kids instantly. They didn't give them any sort of defense. She also got sent to prison. And even when she became a policewoman, that still wasn't enough for Maude to not judge her. So I think she just does think, well, the hammock's empty for a start, so that probably made Maude think, I think she believed her, I think. And also, this was changed because I ended up sending you a better clip than the one I originally recorded a few weeks ago. But this was the first time that Maude had made me laugh out loud, possibly, ever. I did think it was funny just how condescending, how easy she is to condescend Marge, and just treats her like a child, just in the most patronising kind of voice. And then, again, she knows that Lisa is the sort of most intelligent, kindest of the three, but she still gives her that kind of doubtful look when she skips past. But
very little respect given.
Yeah, she really treats Marge in the most sort of humiliating. You can tell from her voice that she's basically saying yes, I am going along with your fantasy to make you feel better. She might as well have said that.
But even that's better than, I know your husband's actually dead, but I'm still going to judge you harshly for how you're dealing with it.
Yeah. And Helen takes what would normally be Maude's role here. I have noticed that when Maude and Helen are together, it tends to be Helen that does more of the speaking. So this is, but out of Maude and Helen, Maude is more likely to say this to Marge. Helen is more of the brash, confrontational one. So maybe that's why she's just keeping her mouth shut.
Maybe. And I'm thinking back to earlier when we talked from the Jacques Derrida quote, when we talked about Maude maybe being the one who tries to solve problems and build bridges, but she's certainly not building any bridges right now.
No, she's full judgment mode, and as we know from the week before, she now thinks Homer's passed away and he is the problem of a vengeful god. So she's probably somewhat happy, but she wants to remain sort of glum looking, and maybe there is some remorse there, but the way that she treats Marge, it doesn't seem that way. At least she's being nice to her though.
It would have made Maude an easier person to like in this episode had she not mocked a small child and condescended her grieving mother. I liked her better when she was just sat quietly in the restaurant as she was in the last episode.
Next is Season 7, Episode 8, Mother Simpson, written by Richard Apple, directed by David Silverman, first aired November 19th, 1995. And also the first appearance of effervescent blend clothes as Mona Muddy May Suggins Simpson.
So the Simpsons are in, I guess, in the mall, and they're heading out to get a photograph taken. Don't know the context, but they're all wearing their Sunday best. Maude's got that little hat plonked on top of her big tower of hair.
He called Marge Maude twice.
Ka-ching, ka-ching. I have to drop a coin into the Maude jar every time I do that, and I do it on a regular basis. So the Simpsons, not with Maude Flanders, but with Marge Simpson, go into the mall to get their picture taken, to get the family photos taken. They pass 3 photos on the wall of the Flanders family. One of Maude and Ned in front of a big pink love heart, standing weirdly apart from each other and wearing regular clothes, nothing too fancy. And then, so I wonder when that was taken and why those pictures are exclusively of the Flanders on the wall, but we'll get to that. And then we see one of the family all suited up. Maude is looking resplendent, sat in a long grey gown, and Ned is reversing the old shoulder touch, and I think Ned has his hand on Maude's shoulder, and Rod and Todd are in some nice little monkey suits. We see a third picture of Rod and Todd in the same suits. What a day. And then we cut to a photo on a table of Ned in that fake Time magazine cover that you see people do. And it says Man of the Century, which Homer says must have been a pretty slow century.
Yeah.
Which is a good
This
gag.
is from it is. I like, that's why I left it in. It doesn't really need leaving in, but this is the Christmas episode where Bart steals a game from the mall to try and save, and he gets like banned and then doesn't tell the family, but then Marge wants them to go and take this nice picture. So they've gone back, which is why they're all dressed up nicely. It's supposed to be like a nice Christmas picture. Yeah, it's very interesting that this photo shop in the mall seems to be a go-to place for them, because they're wearing 2 different sets of clothes, which to me says that's 2 separate occasions. And no pictures of anybody else, just pictures of the Flanders family.
See, that's the weird thing, isn't it? So we don't know who's we're assuming the person running it has no real strong connection to the Flanders family, but it's not like these pictures are particularly amazing. Maybe they're the only respectable family in Springfield. Is that a possibility?
It is, but again, they could have 9 times out of 10 with this situation, it would just be a family of characters you didn't know. Just if it was a portrait on the wall of a shop where they're just going to get pictures taken. I suppose it was to set up the pretty slow century gag.
I think the main thing is probably to just highlight the goodiness of the Flanders and just to set up that the Simpsons ain't all that.
Yeah, like a little sort of, that's the general theme between the Simpsons and the Flanders. So it's nice that there's a little subliminal hints at that in places like this. There is a possibility that somebody does know the Flanders who owns this place and gave them like a free photo shoot in exchange for being able to display the photos.
Would you like to speculate how and why that came to be?
Sure. It's owned by Willard Tinker Turnbull.
And yet again, Willard
cousin.
Tinker Turnbull, for people who are not in the know, is Maude's cousin, son of Rex Turnbull, her uncle. Again, another Goodman who somehow made their way from the Springfield township of North Dakota to Springfield, whatever state they're in. I mean, we did say at one point Springfield, Oregon, but I don't know if we bought into that.
No, it's better to keep it a mystery as well, I think. But yeah, maybe the early days, I imagine, pre-Simpsons family moving in, I imagine Maude really enjoyed Springfield. So I imagine she would recommend it to people, which is why the likes of Willard ended up there.
Yeah, and maybe there's some kind of sistership going on between the Springfields there of North Dakota and whatever state they've ended up in.
Perhaps. It is always possible that is the Springfield in question, but it's unlikely.
This is where I was just going. Struck me for the very first time that maybe she didn't go anywhere.
Maybe it is Springfield Township. Unlikely, but because none of them have the accent, but they all sort of have a variety of accents. It's sort of like everybody moved to Springfield and nobody was native to Springfield.
How very American. How very American of them.
side.
Slow Century, also the name of a Pavement DVD. Pavement, one of the greatest rock and roll bands of all time. And I did Google to see whether one of them was referencing the other. Much more likely that Pavement were referencing The Simpsons than vice versa, but it doesn't seem to suggest anywhere that there were any references going on. So maybe they both just came up with this funny, surreal concept of there being a slow century.
I like the idea that Homer doesn't think he was there for that century either. Like, he doesn't remember. Like, he isn't thinking about it as the century he's in. It's a different century.
Yeah, must have been a pretty slow century. Nice. The game bar stole was Lee Carvello's putting challenge, which you can now play online. Should you like?
Yes, he stole a game called Bone Storm.
Oh yeah, of course.
Then,
he got Lee Carvello's challenge, didn't he? He didn't steal that. He got it, and he didn't like it. He got it at the end of the show, didn't he?
Yeah, and he tried to look pleased because Marge had, put some effort in. She thought she got the correct game, so he just, plays along with it as if it was the correct game, which is sweet.
The video game every boy wants.
Yes.
Yes.
Next, we have Season 7, Episode 12, Team Homer, described by Nathan as one of her biggest non-speaking roles, written by Mike Scully, directed by Mark Kirkland, first aired January 7th, 1996.
Before we start, the name of their bowling team is the Holy Rollers. Do you know much about that term?
No.
You know why they may have chosen it? Does it ever reveal?
No, it just sounds very rhythmic, like something Ned would say. So I just assumed it also sounds like a real phrase.
Well, it is a real phrase, generally a derogatory one. Essentially, it refers to, according to the Urban Dictionary, it refers to somebody who attends a charismatic church service, which places a great amount of importance on the Holy Spirit. The person tends to be a very devout Christian, and during church service becomes influenced by the Spirit and drops onto the floor and rolls around. Hence, the term was coined the Holy Roller. I went to that Pentecostal church down the road, and they're just a bunch of holy rollers.
Nice. That doesn't seem like the kind of church Ned and Maude would be into, so I imagine they don't know what it means.
Yeah, so maybe they heard the term and then they thought, yeah, we'll have that, because we're holy high rollers, because a high roller is like a rich person. A holy roller, a person that is heavily religious, listens to contemporary Christian music, and has a holier-than-thou attitude. Jeff is a holy roller because he thinks he's better than everyone else.
That's more apt. As we discussed, we do think that Maude might have that in her where she does think that she's somewhat better than people.
And as with everything on the Urban Dictionary, they get better as you scroll down the page. Holy roller, a devout Christian who oppresses others' beliefs under the condition that those beliefs are inconsistent with the oppressors. See also psychotic neo-fascist bitch. Gary's mum is a holy roller. Number
seems
4.
like the best of 3.
Well, it gets better. Number 4, a holy roller is a joint rolled out of paper torn from the Christian Bible. Dude, this hotel has a free Bible. Feel like a holy roller?
That's possibly the least apt for our Maude.
Yeah. It's also apparently a kind of amplifier, which is all good news. So I'd like to sponsor the Urban Dictionary if we had any more room for sponsors, but I think we're all sponsored up for this episode. So, we've messed around a lot here, mostly me. Let's get into the content. Clip 1, at the bowling alley, we got Otto, Mo, Homer, and Apu looking at a big trophy. Burns is in there as well. I'm not sure why there's 5 of them, but maybe Otto's not part of the team. The Holy Rollers have won it 5 years in a row, they say. Cut to Maude, Ned, Helen, and Reverend Lovejoy under a heavenly glow. Ned's holding a bowling ball. Maude has a goofy duck face with her eyes raised to the heavens. A nice white bowling shirt, 50s style, with these pink reddish kind of stripes and a collar. They're looking down. Reverend Lovejoy is writing something. They think they're so high and mighty just because they never got caught driving without pants, says Mo. Cut to Ned bowling. Maude and Helen, with very good posture as always, are looking on. We get a pin's eye view. And my question was, what's Maude's bowling history?
Well, you get more of a sense of Maude's bowling history in the next one when you actually see her bowl. My notes for this one are, I get the impression she may have designed those shirts because of the pink. It fits most with how Maude looks out of the 4 of them, I think. Once again, we're back with It is. It's a good, and also the t-shirts seem to be glowing, which is very weird, like radiating like angelic light. Mo, once again, Mo is here.
Mo and Homer, but neither of them seem to be leering over Maude at this point.
No, it's all business this week. Mo, if anything, actively dislikes them.
Yeah.
As I said, the auto explanation is that these clips are sort of, although it looks like it's all one long scene, some of it's from like early and then some of it's from the end of the episode, and they swap out Otto for Mr. Burns, which brings sort of the problem because Mr. Burns is really bad at bowling.
He is very bad. There's something happens later that I'm not really very, I'm quite puzzled by why it's a big event, but it is.
Yeah.
But anyway, that's just a way to introduce the Holy Rollers team. Do we know much more about the team? Do they appear intermittently, or is it just this episode?
I think it's just this episode, and they're one of a collection of about 6 or 7 sort of comedy teams that they go up against. Like, there's a team of like foreign accent characters, Bumblebee Man and possibly Willie. And I just remember Apu saying they begged me to join their team. They begged me. And yeah, like there's one called the Home Wreckers, I think, with Jacques and Mindy Simmons and a couple of people who got in the way of Homer and Marge's relationship, form a bowling team. So it is weird that they focused on. It's easier with the holy thing because you can play it like, oh, they're really good because of the faith in God giving them the ability to be good or something nonsensical like that. But yeah, the 4 of them are seen together. Around this time, this is when you establish that this is a group of 4 rather than Ned irritating Reverend Lovejoy and him avoiding him.
The Flanders. Basically, we see the Flanders coming into their own in the next few episodes.
Yes, particularly here. This is the most non-church related thing we've ever seen them do, I think.
So clip 2, we see Homer and the rest of the gang are getting ready to play, and 4 monks in full brown habits walk in, but it's clear these are the Holy Rollers because they're carrying bags that say Holy Rollers on them, and we can see Maude's protruding duck lips and bushy ginger hair popping out from under one of the hoods. They look up towards the light, and they are bathed in light, and they pull down their hoods to reveal they are, in fact, the Holy Rollers team. How does this even make sense? They were just bowling like a minute ago.
Yeah, again, this is later. This is after Burns has joined the team. So there's been I think that clip 1 was like 5 or 6 minutes into the episode, and then the rest of these clips are all like the last 5 or 10 minutes of the episode. So some stuff's happened in between. They basically, at this point, I think they've got up to the point where they're second place behind the Holy Rollers. So we've seen them beat down all the other teams, and this is sort of, again, they're making them look like sort of like a video game boss, how they would be introduced. And obviously they've got the possibly back to unreliable narration with the heavenly light shining down on them. That could be, again, it feels like a missed opportunity for a joke about a flickering, like a light being too bright or something, and Barney's uncle having to jam it with a stick or something.
Yes. In our regular callback to Dan Harmon things, I just watched the Freaky Friday community episode where they do the light switch tester. And they do that 3 times where they switch the light on and off to give that effect. Yeah. So everything in this so far is basically just showing this kind of moral superiority of them. And they don't do anything particularly mean. They just more or less just arrogantly strut in like the bosses, right? If you think about the greatest potentially bowling movie of all time, The Big Lebowski, Jesus, and those kind of characters that are strutting around.
And I don't know if Lebowski was before this. I think it might have been just after, to be honest. I think this is like 96 maybe, and Big Lebowski is what, like 97, 98?
Well, let me check on the internet, because what I've noticed is a lot of people in these podcasts, they say, I can't check the internet. You totally can. Big Lebowski, 1998.
There you go. And again, Big Lebowski, character name, Maude. Maude Lebowski.
Yes, the nihilist. Second greatest bowling movie of all time is
Blackball with Johnny Vegas.
That is a good one. That's Crown Green bowling, isn't it? I'm thinking of the 1996 movie, Bill Murray movie, Kingpin.
Oh, yes.
Is Bill Murray in that one? It's Woody Harrelson and Bill Murray, isn't it? That's 96.
He has to bowl every day, isn't it? He wakes up every day and has to bowl.
That's right. Every day he has to bowl, and then he can only get out of the loop when he bowls a perfect game.
Yes.
Monkey bowls a perfect game. That is 1996, though. Predates.
Yes. So maybe it was just a big bowling, maybe 10-pin bowling around this time was gaining popularity again. It does feel to me like a very 90s thing.
Bowling made a comeback in the 90s for sure, with that. I mean, especially in England, with all of those new bowling alleys popping up. Because when I was a kid, I couldn't bowl. Like, there's nowhere to bowl when I was a kid. But like when I was about 18, 19, I think they started opening up again.
Yeah, I remember always having access to a bowling alley from like age 10 onwards.
Exactly.
And that would have been like 2000.
Only 90s kids remember that.
Yes, Cadbury Marble. But yeah, they're not being very competitive, and they're not being very. Again, they're all acting like Maude here. They're all very passive, very placid. They just turn up, bowl, and that's what it's about for them. It's not about the maybe that's the key to winning, is that they don't appear to have the desire to win that much. They're just there to bowl. Transcendent,
and they very aloof. Maude's head in this is almost round.
Yeah, it's a strange look for her.
It's a good one. But she, the pointed face Maude is the classic for me. This is going into bongo realms, to be honest.
Yeah, she is quite circular, isn't she?
Clip 3. Burns is clearly struggling with the ball. It's far too heavy for him as Maude watches on. They have a lane each, and Burns lets the ball go very, very slowly. Ned strolls up and bowls a strike. He jumps for joy. And I said, no high fives? It's unusual. But this is a machine. Maude steps up without missing a step and just boom, bowls a huge curveball that just destroys the pins. And there's another strike there. Real fast Helen comes in right behind her. Boom, and then the Reverend boom. 4 strikes in a row, aka quadruple turkey.
Precisely. She doesn't. My main note about this is that she has very Maude, but she seems to take no joy from this event. She gets up, she bowls, she doesn't celebrate the strike in the way that Ned. I may note that Ned and Reverend Lovejoy both celebrate the strike.
Yes.
And Helen and Maude don't. And I'm thinking, is that because they, again, didn't want to bring Roswell in just to say, yay?
Could be, or it could just be the misogynistic Simpsons writers who felt only the men would be able to celebrate it and the women should just accept that, yes, they're great, but they don't want to be a show-off. Nobody likes that.
Yes, just sit quietly with your arms folded.
Exactly, but that's not what we say. We say those ladies have a right to celebrate just as much as the men, if not more.
Exactly.
But not more. I just want to state that clearly, but not more.
No, never. Yeah, it is. It's just kind of joyless for her, isn't it?
Well, I thought that, but I think more she's just in that zen zone and they're just business, because after they've done the 4 strikes and Mr. Burns' incredibly slow ball falls into the gutter, the whole Holy Rollers team turn and do a big high five. Maude at that point is goofy and happy. So I think it's more about, don't distract me, I'm getting down to business. And is that a Maude we've seen before?
It doesn't seem so, does it? This is the most focused on a task we've seen her. And again, this is the only time we've seen her in a competition setting herself. We've seen her watching Todd and reacting to that in sort of the correct moments, how, you would react to it. This is the first time we've seen her competing herself. I was just thinking about the statue, the Praiseland statue, where it says, she taught us the shame of joy. So again, maybe that's why she doesn't want to be too excited, because she finds it somewhat shameful. What I did notice, Helen's hair is the wrong colour now. Helen's hair is like ginger. It's the same colour as Maude's when they do the high five. And somebody shouts hallelujah, but it's not Roswell. I can tell it's not Roswell, and she's not credited for this episode, so it must be someone else. And I think it's supposed to be Helen.
Oh no, I've got the Reverend shouting hallelujah when he bowls his strike.
Oh, it's definitely, there's a woman. Reverend Lovejoy says hallelujah, and then one of the 2 women says hallelujah again in response to his hallelujah.
I see.
But I'm pretty confident that it's Helen.
Really? One thing is that we've never seen Maude in true competitive mode. So what would that look like?
I think this is what it looks like. She's focused. She's sort of unfazed in a sort of professional way, in that she's she knows she has to get up and bowl, sit back down and wait her turn, and she will only celebrate when, like, she's not overconfident. Just because she's got a strike doesn't mean that she's gonna throw her arms up and imagine they've won. But 4 strikes in a row there's a bit where Ned bowls and misses 1 pin, and Homer just points and laughs at him for a good 30 seconds until, again, I almost included this, but Maude's not in it, and we've got a lot to get through. But Ned basically puts in another prayer to God, and God knocks the pin over.
Yeah, come on.
But, yeah, she's focused and she's not willing to crumble at this point. Like, at this point as well, I think they pretty much think we've got this. Like, there's only 3 of them who can bowl. One of them's Homer, who they don't have much faith in. Last time they saw Mo, he lost his mind.
They have stormed out of his restaurant recently without paying.
Apu comes into play a bit more in the next couple of weeks for us, actually. But at this point, they don't really know Apu very well, from what we can tell. So I don't think they see this team as a threat until they become a threat towards the end.
I'd like to know more about that, but we'll wait and see if Maude's part of that. So here's the question. The Holy Rollers logo is a bowling ball with a halo over it, which is pretty cool. Now, do we think Maude designed that logo? Do we think Maude made the shirts? Because you said you think she might have a hand in it. Did she actually make them from scratch? Did she just order them from an online bowling catalogue? Or back in those days, a paper bowling catalogue?
I believe that she had some input into the design of them. I don't think she physically made them herself, but I can imagine her picking the colouring and the typeface. Yeah, I can see her sketching up a little bowling logo for them and getting it printed on a couple of bags.
Yeah. So you don't think she's the seamstress?
No, I think she's more of the visual design side, and I don't think Helen is interested in anything of that sort. So I imagine, they put in an order in. I don't think Ned and the Reverend are big on seaming either.
Who knows? Clip 4. The ball of Mr. Burns is rolling slowly towards the pins. This is later. Otto, is it this kind of like grabber machine? They call them the UFO machines. What? I don't know. What do we call them?
I don't know, actually. The grabber machines with the teddies.
Exactly. You get a good claw. The claw. We get a good old back of the head shot from Maude. And this is where, earlier Helen's hair was off. Lovejoy has a bright red flat top.
Strange, I didn't notice that.
It's just, I slid across it the first time it jumped out at me that someone had just bright red hair and it's Lovejoy. He just has this huge bright red flat top from the back. Anyway, Maude is engaged in watching the bowling in front of her while Otto is trying to grab the generic toys in the grabber, but he has grabbed the one screw that is this giant screw that is holding the machine together, almost as if it was designed for this very purpose. The ball is ready to go into the gutter, but it just manages to tap one of the pins on its way in, and we see the pins wobbling. We see the Rollers team and Homer's team with their jaws wide open. Maude's eyes are wide. She's looking in shock. She can't believe what's happening. Mo's teeth are gritted. Otto somehow puts his strength into the arm of the machine and pulls out the entire screw. I didn't know you could actually add strength to the machine just through sheer willpower, but Otto manages it, so good work. The machine falls apart, and the subsequent shudder, actually knocks over 2 pins. Homer's team jumps for joy. Burns says, "Excellent." Cut to a shocked, dismayed Rollers. Maude's jaw is still open and looking distraught. Otto says yes and grabs a little red toy lobster off the floor.
Good scene. Reanalysis. This is where everything's falling apart for a little bit. There's a couple of things that don't make sense at all. In that, the first thing to me that jumps out as not making sense is that they are only 2 points behind the Holy Rollers from winning, which to me must imply that Mr. Burns hasn't been doing that badly, or that something went badly for the Holy Rollers team at some point in this game, because somehow they're only 2 points behind despite having Mr. Burns on the team. So that struck me as a bit strange. The Otto thing, Otto was on the team at some point earlier on and got swapped out for Burns, and then basically just started focusing on wanting that lobster harmonica. And he's just sort of in the background occasionally for the episode trying to win this lobster. But what I do like is that Otto, obviously. They found a way to bring Otto, because he was a part of the team initially. They brought in a way for Otto to help them win, which was quite nice.
Yeah.
Like, it is down to the original team that the reason that they beat the Holy Rollers. But again, Maude doesn't kick off. She doesn't cause a fuss. She doesn't notably sulk. They take the loss pretty well, considering it's a farce.
Something's gone wrong in the middle of the game if it's coming down to Burns only needing 2 points to win. But, you know, Maude, after her initial shock, how does she take it?
We don't know, but that's the last we see of her. And the rest of the scene takes place in the bowling alley, so that implies that nothing chaotic happens. They don't, like, lose their shit and start throwing things around and kicking off with people. So that's quite nice. They just probably, again, very Maude. She would have just taken it in a stride and they would have just gone home and she would have prepared cucumbers with cottage cheese.
So she would have just, do you think she would have just dismissed it? Oh, it's just a fun game. Or do you think she would have been hurting and raging inside and really wanting to win, but able to control herself?
No, again, I don't think she's that bothered. I think, again, she's very much, this is God's plan. So, we obviously weren't supposed to win because God didn't plan it that way.
Dentistry?
Yeah.
Exactly.
But this is the only time we've seen her displaying a hobby. I think that's worth bringing up.
Yes, it's a straight up hobby. And how much do you think she bought into it? And how much was she initially just a friend or a helpful team member? Because she's very good. We only see her bowl once, though. So, but they don't seem surprised by the fact that they get 4 strikes in a row. So let's assume that that's pretty common occurrence.
Yeah, she doesn't respond to it. I don't think it was her idea, but I don't think it was like, we have to go and do this again. I imagine she quite enjoyed it, but she wouldn't have suggested it herself. I don't know who out of the 4 of them would have suggested it. Possibly Lovejoy, if there isn't any financial prize, you just win a trophy. And as we know, the commandments and that, they can't hold this trophy in too high of a regard, because then it's a false idol. So again, I think they're just in it for maybe at the barbecue a few weeks ago, they were talking about, maybe getting out a bit more and doing some stuff. And this is the culmination of that. But actually, no, that can't be right, because Apu says something about them winning this trophy like the last 5 years in a row.
Exactly, and it does. Had that been the case, what would have been the chances if they'd all bowl and said, "Oh, actually, yes, I'm incredibly good. Oh, me too." It looks like maybe they put in the hours, and so that brings me to the question of how often do they play, how do they train, and where are the boys?
I was thinking where Rod and Todd. I'd like to say that they meet up at least once a week for this. I imagine probably more so, because none of them have a lot going on, really. Like, from what we can tell, Maude and Helen don't have their own full-time jobs. Helen and Reverend Lovejoy's daughter isn't even there anymore. She's been sent away. Lovejoy runs the church, which, again, from the looks of things, he only does on a Sunday. And Flanders has the store, which is his store, so he could take the time off to go bowling twice a week. So yeah, maybe twice a week. Rod and Todd, I don't know. Maybe they're with Grandma Flanders.
Do you not think they'd be with Ruth Powers?
That is also possible, because, I don't think they'd take them to Homer and Marge after the whole baptism incident, out of fear that Homer and Marge would do something in retaliation with Rod and Todd, like cut off Rod's arm.
A reverse baptism.
Yes. Unbaptized.
Your child is no longer welcome at the pearly gates, and you'll never find out until it's too late.
Precisely.
Sprinkle them with boiled holy water.
Yes.
Get the holiness out.
There you have Maude's biggest non-speaking role. I was being ironic before, but I did get what you mean past Nathan. Anyway, next up is Season 7, Episode 13. To Bad Neighbors, a.k.a. the George Bush one. Written by Ken Keeler, directed by Wes Archer. Originally aired January 14th, 1996.
Homer's in the front yard. He's dancing on a table wearing an umbrella hat and a full dinner suit with tails. He kicks a toaster out into the crowd. We see Wiggum, Ralph, Nelson, the Van Houtens, Ned, Maude there. And he shouts, "Hey, big spender, dig this blender." And he kicks a blender into the crowd and the drunk guy catches it. Amazingly, no damage to his foot or to the blender. Catches it, and Lenny's looking on, Maude is looking on. Maude is smiling. I think she's thinking, that's a good prize.
Possibly, yeah.
Practical prize.
We've encountered this yard sale before, as you know.
I do.
With the Stewcast. And interestingly, I didn't think Maude was in this scene for a while. Like, I've watched this recently and didn't spot her. And then I saw a meme. I remember me sending saying, it seems like somebody's put Maude into this because she's not in it. And then I watched it, and everybody else in this scene appears 2 or 3 times. But this like split second is the only time that Maude appears. I agree. I think she thinks that the blender is she's probably just this is her kind of fun. It's like safe. She's in the same neighborhood. She's talking to people that she knows, but there's something a bit different and exciting going on. And she can look if she is like Helen as well, which we're not saying she is, but this would be a good way to snoop on the neighbors and the kind of things that the neighbors own.
Yeah, is she judging the toaster? Is she judging the blender? Is she judging the fact that Homer's dancing on a table with an umbrella hat? Why is he doing that?
Ned had a microphone and was trying to attract people to certain tables, and Homer just took over and did a better job. This scene does end with everybody walks off and sees the limo pulling up to the presidential house across the road with the new neighbours, the Bushes, and everybody runs over, and there's a crowd that you don't see Maude in, like welcoming them. But Homer carries on dancing, and Chief Wiggum keeps playing the electric, guitar, and then Disco Stew just comes and stands next to him and just dances for like 30 seconds.
Nice. Maybe that'll be in the Stewcast too. The Flanders are stood outside George Bush Sr.'s giant new house. We see Ned's driving license. It doesn't give too much away. If the numbers are real, though, it might tell us Ned's birthday, but we would need to know what state we are in to work this out. Cut to some face-forward Flanders. Maude smiling with slightly droopy but regular eyes. Ned is beaming. A big, nice smile. They're holding hands. Rod looks nervous. And your business here, Mr. Flanders, says the Secret Service guy. Maude is pouting and standing behind Ned, letting him take the lead. Well, sir, I'm welcoming the Bushes on behalf of the Neighborhood Association. He stands nervously on his tiptoes. Maude is slightly squinting her eyes. She does not flinch because she feels no fear. Bush Sr. is hammering up a sign that says the Bushes. Never mind about that. Just give him a quick pass with the metal detector and let him on in, says George Sr. Hey, Bar.
Yeah.
Hey, Bar, the neighbors are here. Maude is looking somewhat wide-eyed, looks weirdly to the side when Ned is talking to Bush. I'm Ned Flanders. This is Maude and Rod and Todd.
Yeah, I'll interject here. Did you notice the face-forward Maude? Well, face-forward Flanders.
I did?
Yeah, it's nice to see her like that. That's the sort of image that they use when they need a face-forward Maude, which doesn't come up very often, but there is one on the front cover of a Flanders book, and I think it's based on that. They all seem pretty excited, which gives you a more of a... And the shortness of these clips, we learn a lot about her interests in this episode. Like in this episode we are doing over these clips, that she's obviously, we see some of her indirectly, we see some things that she obviously approves and doesn't approve of, including whatever Bush was up to. She seems to be on board for this Republican lemonade.
Well, we pan out to see the Flanders moving as a team up the steps. Maude, arms by her side, eyes half closed. Ned steps in to Howdly Doodly, their President Bush, or should I say President Neighbor. Maude smiles through closed teeth and gives a little regal wave. George Bush Sr. waves and says, Howdly Doodly yourself there, Ned. This is my wife, Barbara. Call her Bar. Would you like some lemonade? Barbara brings some lemonade on a tray. Tip-top notch, says Ned, and George Bush replies with Oakley Dokley Thank-dankly, or something to those effects. We cut back to see the family, and Maude is sitting motionless and smiling on a chair, setting up the Flanders as the Bushes' good old... That doesn't make any sense.
What?
She's sitting motionless on a chair, and the Flanders and the Bushes are some good old-time people.
Yeah, it's clear that Ned's more excited than Maude, just from body language and the fact that he's speaking so much. Maude looks a bit more like she's been dragged along to this. But if she had any real issues, she wouldn't have gone. I don't think she would go along if she wasn't on some kind of board. It's strange to me that Ned and George Bush have the same sort of mannerisms, because they're making Bush out to be like a very low energy, not negative overall, but yeah, mundanely like negative person. And Flanders is the opposite of that. So it's weird that they've sort of connected on this level already.
Bush
to
was
me,
kind of a quiet character, Bush Senior, and Ned can be quiet, but he's quite outgoing as well. I guess the president, you have to be quite outgoing. So I could see how they get along.
Ned's a lot friendlier.
Well, I think the episode quickly pivots into Bart being Dennis the Menace, the American Dennis the Menace, and Bush being the neighbor chap who's Dennis's enemy. And so Bush has to get super grumpy. But I think that's just because that was what was called for in the plot.
Yeah, it just seems like they bond super quickly, and George Bush seems to really like Flanders, and he doesn't particularly like anybody else that he meets throughout the episode. So
no, I mean, I think the rest of them are probably quite obnoxious. Ned's clearly one of the nicest people, and Maude, when she's on her best behavior, is also very nice too.
Yeah.
It's like she doesn't seem particularly nervous, but this might be nervous Maude, where she just sits smiling, confident in her silence, but not really confident enough to speak or express an opinion, which she has no problem doing when she feels strongly in a town hall meeting or when someone offers her sugar.
Yeah, again, it's all about who she's with and the power dynamics. If she doesn't feel like she would get away with shouting or being passive aggressive, I don't think she chooses to do it. Because again, sometimes she will sit back and say nothing in situations that are worse than the situations where she speaks up. So it's all about choice with Maude, and she's very respectful of power dynamics, and she knows that this is the first celebrity she's met, I think, that I can think of. Aerosmith she saw as like a performance, but this is the first celebrity interaction I can recall Maude having.
What's interesting for me is that she doesn't try to impress the Bushes at all. I imagine some people, both in real life and in Springfield, will be going out of their way to be overly respectful or to somehow try to impress the Bush family. Maude, she just quietly sits there and accepts the lemonade, lets the boys run over and play. She doesn't get too, she doesn't get too preachy with them. It's the wise choice for Maude.
Yes, and I think maybe the Bushes like the Flanders because of this. Yeah, they're sort of doing what the Bushes want from this town. They don't want to be celebrities, and Maude is treating them just like neighbours, which is nice.
Like the nice, respectful neighbours they actually are most of the time. This is the good Maude. This is the Maude we like. Although it would have been nice for Maude to have, expressed a little bit more of herself. But maybe, if she spent more time with Barbara Bush, the two of them would have flourished together, but we don't get to see that, so I'm guessing that's all off camera. Clip 2. Maude is nursing a lemonade, drinking it slowly. Smiling, long-faced Maude says, "So what brings you to Springfield?" This feels like some very forced small talk that we haven't really seen before from Maude. Rod looks hopeful and happy. Todd with smiling eyes on his mummy. Bush and Barbara Bush clasp hands. Barbara says, "Well, George and I wanted to be private citizens and go where nobody cared about politics, so we found the town with the lowest voter turnout in America. Happy to be here among good average people with no particular hopes or dreams."
That's my favourite line, I think, that George Bush delivers.
It's a backhanded compliment, isn't it?
Yeah, and he doesn't mean it to sound so... I think he does mean it in a complimentary way, but it's very insulting to the entire town, including Ned and Maude, but they don't seem to take any offence to it whatsoever. Maybe they, again, like the sort of smugness of Maude and the sort of smugness of the family in general, maybe just assumes that because they're saying this to them, they aren't including them in that list.
Yeah, I think there's probably a little bit of Maude thinking, well, they don't really mean us. They just mean those other common folk. We have our hopes and dreams, and they're very much in line with what America should be. The America of the 1950s, where pants were held up with a belt.
A belt that could be removed and used as a weapon if anybody got out of line.
I'm sure that's not how Maude would see it, but the thing is that if sometimes people do get out of line and they just need a little bit of a firm hand to get them back in line. We've never seen Maude take that firm hand with her kids, though.
No, I imagine she wouldn't, but that's when people refer to the glory days of relationships. It seems to be that's what they're that time seems to be the time that they go. But it wasn't all good. I don't think that it was the best. Maybe that's controversial, but both roles should be.
Well, they could be controversial with, say, Martin Luther King or basically any woman. Maybe the more conservatives might argue that it was the heyday of the past, but the white picket fence of the 1950s is often looked back upon with rose-tinted spectacles. But I like 2020. 2020's got a lot going for it.
Yes, the birth of the Maude.
These days, and looking forward to that bright future, I can only hope that we love and respect each other more and more with each passing year. I think Maude would echo that sentiment, even though maybe in her heart of hearts she wished she had a time machine that could go back to 1955.
Perhaps, but yeah, there are things that she wouldn't stand for, but there are things that she would also enjoy.
So we cut back to Rod, aka Little-ish Rod, who says through worried teeth as Maude looks sideways to him. Rod runs over. Todd, it's little Todd. Cut back to Todd, who grabs President Bush's arm, a federal offense. Now, I don't know if it is, but I know in an episode of The West Wing where Charlie grabs the president's arm to try and wake him up, the president says, "Charlie, you're committing a federal offense." Anyway, little-ish Todd says, "There's one little boy you should watch out for. He's a bad little boy for no reason." Todd, what are you talking about?
Yeah, Todd at this point.
It's bad, but what about Nelson? What about Snake? What about Jimbo Jones? Come on.
Todd at this point has no real problems with Bart either. I don't think. The only times we've seen them together, they seem to have gotten along pretty well. Rod's had no interaction with Bart, I don't think. I don't think they've spoken to each other yet, but Todd...
I mean, on camera, we got to assume these people have lived next to each other for the best part of a decade, and they've probably had some off-camera run-ins that weren't part of the story arcs enough to get on screen.
True, and there was that time that Rod spoke to Bart about the sugar, so there is that as well.
There is that. Although, this has been framed that Rod apparently has diabetes. We haven't talked about this yet, and I don't know where that came from or even that's canon. But according to the Simpsons wiki, Rod has diabetes, and this would explain a lot about Marge's anger. Ka-ching, Maude's anger at being offered sugar, and actually, it would explain a lot about life and some of the tensions in the Flanders house. How if Rod actually did have this very serious, potentially life-threatening condition.
Yeah, that's strange. I reckon that's just from a dark gag in season 17 onwards. Between 17 and 23, I think they were trying to emulate Family Guy, and things got a little bit too stupid and dark every now and again. So I'll look into that. But for now, we're going to go with Rod is fully pancreatic.
All right, so we will not take that as canon until we prove it, but it would explain a lot. It would reframe the whole thing, like what happens at the end of Memento.
Yes, when it all makes sense.
When Kevin Spacey stole all that stuff off those flyers, but he didn't do anything mucky.
Oh, yeah. Yes. I got my Christmas present was a Empire magazine from February 2000, which is the month that Maude died, but that was a coincidence. That it was the headline is Kevin Spacey, King of Cool, and then there's a big interview with Kevin Spacey, and he spends I read it yesterday, and the first column is him talking about how he's not gay.
How he's not gay and how he's definitely not committed any sexual abuse. I'd just like to start this interview by saying my upcoming movie, Snowballs 4, with me, Kevin Spacey. And I'd like to say just to start that I am heterosexual and I have never done anything mucky to anybody that will get me in trouble.
Essentially, yeah. It's mostly that.
He was sowing those seeds preemptively. Didn't work though when all that torrent of evidence came to light. But still, the solution of putting him into a little tiny rocket and shooting him into space seems to have worked.
It does. My main point about this entire clip and the clip before is that I think this might be Maude's most unnecessary appearance to date. I can't work out. This scene feels like it's setting something up. and it isn't. The only thing it sets up is that Bart isn't very good, which they didn't need this scene at all, other than to tell you why Bush had moved to Springfield and that Bart isn't very good. Both of those things could be done in a throwaway line, but they gave an entire scene to Ned and Maude.
Yeah, and again, I think the only thing that could explain it is that it's setting the tone, setting the scene by promoting the Flanders as everything good in the town. That just elevates things for when the badness does start. Because Bart's not really that bad, right? It's not like he took a pair of hot scissors to the FBI guy's shin.
No, and he doesn't. Again, like Bush's main problem in this episode is Homer. It's not Bart. He has a bit of a run-in with Bart and spanks him, which leads to the problems with Homer. So it is, again, like it's a Homer episode. It's not a Bart story. Okay. So, it just all felt a bit... I like it. I like that it's in there, and I think you're right that it's in there to just introduce the Bushes and have a family. Must have thought we need somebody to go and introduce the Bushes to Springfield. And, naturally, well, Ned's literally across the road for a start.
Yeah. Because he didn't even need to move in across the road, right? They could have a whole bunch of stuff, but I think they set it up there. I don't think they've really pushed the boat out on that. It feels like it could have been plotted out in a couple of minutes. Hey, George Bush comes in and he has a run-in with Homer. How are we going to introduce him? Oh, Ned can go and say hello. Because Ned, they would do that. The conservative kind of like introduction to the neighbors would be to go around with some cookies. I'm surprised Maude didn't take some cookies for them, some little crucifix cookies or whatever.
Yeah, it is strange they didn't go presenting any gifts.
Todd laughs and Ned pulls him back and says, "Now, Todd, don't scare the president." At that moment, we see Bart roll past the gates on his skateboard and we look at his face in this dramatic movement. Dun, dun, dun. It feels like a specific reference to something, but I couldn't tell what it was. Bush narrows his eyes and watches Bart. We pan back to the Flanders, and again, this feels like it's a reference to something. And the Bushes, and they're all sat on the porch, staring directly at Bart.
They do use this music quite a lot and do this stir-off thing. So I don't know if it's just a Simpsons thing or if it is referencing something, but it feels familiar to me because the Simpsons do it somewhat frequently. Like I can already remember like Maggie and the one-eyed baby doing it. And there's a couple of other times but I do like it. It makes Bart look like a monster. It makes him sort of look to the Bushes, sort of terrifying.
Yeah, for no good reason. He hasn't done anything. He's just a small boy on a skateboard.
Yeah.
Two Secret Service guys stood at the gates. I want to follow up with a question about what Maude might think about the Bushes, really, and about politics and how she would have responded. Because one thing in Marge's letter says, "If we're the dumbest thing you ever saw, Mom, if we're the dumbest thing you ever saw, Washington must be a good deal different than what they teach me at the current events group at the church." Pretty good. What do you think when Maude heard that Barbara Bush had called the Simpsons the family, and by extension, all the people in Springfield, the dumbest thing she ever saw? Do you think she would take that to heart and think it was about her and her family, or think she would be able to isolate just the Simpsons?
Yeah, no, I think we're dealing with a level of smugness again, like we just sort of said in the clip, that Maude would just read that and think, yeah, they are idiots, aren't they? I agree with her. I don't think she didn't, under any circumstances, think that she was included in that list.
No, probably not, to be honest. There's a theory that she's a Republican. It makes a lot of sense that if Maude did vote, she would vote Republican.
I was under that impression, yes, but I imagine these days, maybe not. So I imagine she stands for Republican values, but I believe she would be a good, sensible, human Republican rather than a orange child capturing monster.
Well, the thing is that Trump fellow has kind of thrown everything off whack a little bit, hasn't it? And it will be, I do wonder, Maude generally seeming to have integrity, probably not being able to vote for that man in good conscience.
Yes, I do think that she's a Republican, but I don't think she's particularly right-wing.
Just a little bit right of centre. Who knows?
Yeah,
maybe.
I just don't think I think she'd have more in common with the values of Republicans and the values of liberals, because again, she's not particularly a hippie sort of. I think she's very much a live your life kind of person, but I think she enjoys some semblance of structure and rules, and I think she has a fear that the liberals might, just paint the White House in funky psychedelic colours and just be smoking all the plants and having naked parties on the Washington lawn.
A little bit too much George Clinton and not Bill Clinton. Not that she would have liked Bill Clinton very much, I imagine. Let's move on. Let's not delve into what much Maude stands on the issue of gun ownership or abortion. That's it. We've finished with the Bushes.
That was it for the Bushes, yeah. That was, I felt like it was setting something up, but it wasn't. That was the last time you saw the Flanders with the Bushes. They didn't remain friends, which is very in tradition with Maude.
So long, Bushes. Next, it's season 7, episode 16, Lisa the Iconoclast. Written by Jonathan Collier, directed by Mike B. Anderson. Originally aired the 18th of February 1996.
Lisa the Iconoclast. We are at a parade on Springfield Main Street celebrating 200 years of Springfield, which means it was founded around 1796 or 30 years after that, which is like 50 years before Chicago, 20 years after LA. So they were right there from the beginning of the United States. We see a marching band passing the town hall, a float featuring a kneeling Jebediah Springfield, and a blink and you'll miss it Maude with Rod and Todd. They have a flag, and boys have Jebediah Springfield hats. Maude has none. She is standing with her arms by her side and her eyes slightly drooping. She is next to Lunch Lady Doris, Mr. Burns, Smithers, and the Hibberts.
Yeah, short clip again. Here again, we get to see her displaying an interest in something, in that she's obviously, by being here and showing that her support shows that she believes and respects Jebediah Springfield in sort of the way. Because he's sort of like a god, and nobody questions, other than Lisa, nobody questions Jebediah Springfield. Not like, there's some characters like you see Marge and Miss Hoover and some people really being like harsh to Lisa for questioning anything about Jebediah Springfield. So
hence the iconoclastic name in the title.
Yes, and I imagine Maude to be the same, in that she is devoutly faithful to Jebediah Springfield and the story of his founding of Springfield, even though he was a fraud.
He was a fraud, but I mean, the story kind of makes sense on the surface. Towns are founded by people. And who are we to doubt? If somebody casts a little bit of doubt on our history, that doesn't mean we immediately throw it all away. Obviously, Barry Wigan, who planted the first Wigan tree in Wigan in Worsley Mains, nobody questions whether he was real. King of Barry, King Barry of Was. Nobody questions whether he was real.
No, but it is one of those things that you don't really see a lot in real life, in that everybody in town respects Jebediah. Like even the bullies, like people who would normally have no interest in anything, have this sort of passion for Jebediah Springfield again. The people she stood next to aren't very passionate characters. Did you say Burns?
I think Burns and Smithers are right next to her in this clip, yeah.
Yeah, so you got Burns, who wouldn't normally have this sort of respect for someone. Lunch Lady Doris is a very sort of disinterested character. The Hibberts, maybe. But again, it's sort of, everybody in town is on board and nobody questions it other than Lisa. Whereas in real life, there would be maybe a group of characters that would be questioning it. Like Nelson and the bullies and stuff. I don't know if you actually see them, but it's implied that everybody else in town is a Jebediah Springfield super fan and believer.
Yeah, the fan I get makes sense to have this kind of hero, this icon. It's surprising that no historian, as it seems quite easy for Lisa to dig up these facts, it's surprising that none of the historians of Springfield, of which there must be some, have dug this up, or they decide to keep it a secret. The weird thing about Springfield is it can be as small or as big as you want it to be, because you'd imagine like someone like Jebediah Springfield, that they would love him and believe in him if it was a small village of a couple of hundred people, 300, 400, 500 people. This is our founder. It makes a lot of sense. Springfield is a city. It's got a big main drag there. It's got a university. And sometimes it acts like a small village, whereas like a city, cities don't generally have one founder that everybody believes in and unquestionably thinks. But I mean, it does go back to things like Lincoln and Washington, those kind of figures, and those pioneer figures, which would make sense if Springfield was out on the West Coast.
In my head, it's always been a town, but again, it's the sort of things change and things can move, and sometimes there's a Springfield desert and sometimes there's a beach. They've got a space station, they've got a university, they've got more than one elementary school, they've got a high school. So they sort of have whatever you need. They never, because again, they're not going for particularly realistic. It's not a soap, is it? They don't have to say like, oh, all the kids are going to like high school, but we haven't established a high school, so we're going to have to send them to a different town. It's much easier to just throw in a high school. So it sort of varies, but yeah, I prefer it when it's like this, where it's more of a town and everybody does know each other and knows like sort of everybody's history and they're all rooting for the same thing. And again, it's just Maude in her usual role, just non-controversially agreeing and supporting with what's going on.
But it is nice. Should Jebediah Springfield be real, it's nice. It's only that when Lisa starts to say he's not, that the ill feeling kind of comes out, because it's one of those useful kind of like myths or lies. It brings us all together. It doesn't really matter if it's true.
Yeah, and she ultimately decides to not tell everybody, so Maude goes on believing and having this faith, which is nice.
Clip 4, Homer is storming down the same street and he jumps the barriers. He passes Skinner and Rod and Todd. Maude now is wearing the Jebediah Springfield hat and has a flag and is waving it with the look of someone who's been forced to make a telephone call by her kidnappers. She does not seem like she's having a good time here at this, but she often plays her cards close to her chest, so who knows. Homer leaps the barriers in front of her. Maude does not respond. She just keeps looking blindly forward as if nothing has happened and waving the little flag.
Yeah, another short one. She's again just continuing to show her support even more so. I read it as her having like a wide-eyed excitement. I didn't read it as a forced thing, but I'll go back and have another look, because that fits in with, that reminds me of our very first episode, the golf, or the very first clip, the golf, when she looked sort of dead inside. So maybe it's a similar thing to that. This big festival's going on, there's a lot of noise, so in her head, maybe there's a lot of internal sort of thinking going on because of all the noise going around, and sort of, she's not talking to anybody right now, and she doesn't have to focus if she doesn't want to. So it'd be a perfect time for her to go back over those things in the last couple of years.
1,000-yard stare. She does a lot of these kind of civic duties. And, it's hard to know sometimes what she would do if she really let Maude cut loose. If Ruth Powers really got to her and said, Maude, come on, you don't really want to stand there waving that little flag and believing in this. But I think my thing is that it goes deep, and Maude probably says, like those secrets that you can't even tell yourself. She doesn't know. She doesn't know what's deep in there. So she's just sticking with the surface story of, this is who I am. This is the Springfield that's true. And I'm the loyal citizen of Springfield.
Yeah, I agree. And again, she doesn't seem to be remotely concerned when Homer's going directly for Ned. Maude will probably know the context of this as well, because Homer was the town crier with ringing the bell and shouting all the stuff in the parade. And then Lisa lost it for him by, going to the mayor and talking about Jebediah badly, and then they replaced him with Ned. And this is him just deciding that he's going to just push Ned out of the way and take the bell off him, which is what he does. And Maude must see that that's what's about to happen, and she's just not bothered.
It doesn't affect her. It doesn't matter to her in any way.
There's a possibility that even if she dislikes Homer, she maybe thought that he was, in fact, better for the job, because he did a much better job than Ned in this context. He has the right energy and says the right sort of, Ned's a bit too nice. And so maybe Maude thought it was for the best.
Maybe. I don't know. I'd like to think that Maude would have an unwavering support for Ned in this case, where it doesn't matter.
You think so?
Obviously, when you're sending him out to die from a bunker, then that support crumbles away, and the truth actually. But she's got nothing to lose here by wholeheartedly supporting Ned.
No.
And I think if Lisa had come to her and they'd had that good relationship that we wish they had, and she said, Maude, I need to speak to you about this. I can't talk to anyone else. I know that Jebediah Springfield isn't real. What do you think Maude would have said?
I think she would have had a similar reaction to Marge, which again, it's a weird episode because you'd think Marge would have been the one to help Lisa, but it's Homer who believes her. Marge basically tells her that she's being a little brat and that she needs to get in line and that she's just making up stuff because she wants to be smart. Same with Miss Hoover. Miss Hoover says the same basic thing to her. But I think Maude might come around in time and say, you know what, I don't believe that you would make this up.
I kind of believe, as much as Maude is a changeable lady, that she would say, you have to do what is right here, Lisa.
Yeah.
So you is that what Homer says basically?
Homer basically just says, I believe you. And then they go and dig up they go to Donald Sutherland and tell him, who is the town historian.
That's right.
Hollis Hurlbutt. I like that character as well. He's a good character. Yes. And they dig up the body looking for the silver tongue, and it basically all leads to where it looks like Lisa was wrong, but Homer still believes her, and nobody else in town does. But I think Maude would have come around to it.
Maude would have faith, but she would want to see evidence in this case, I think.
Yeah.
There's plenty more we could dig in about that about her relationship to Jebediah Springfield and myth making, but let's move on. We've had a lot of chat today. We've really hit the open road.
Next, we have Season 7, Episode 23, Much Ado About Nothing, canceled. Written by David S. Cohen, canceled, and directed by Susie Dita, canceled. Aired on the 5th of May 1996. A date now canceled forever. I'm panicking Nettie. I can't work the knob.
Clip 5, Much Ado About Nothing. So I watched that Simpsons theory video about Maude, good or evil, which basically rehashes the sociopath theory that we'll get to at one point, but they cite this clip as evidence. There is a bear in the street, like a big old grizzly or brown bear or whatever. Ned drives his car right into the tree in the garden. The airbags release and Ned crawls out. He is panicking. He runs for the door. Rod is at the window. Run, Daddy, run. Todd is distraught. Ned is trying the handle, pulling it in desperation. Open the door, Maude. I don't have time for the secret knock. He's banging at the door and he's scratching at it. And Maude on the other side is, oh, I'm panicking, Neddy. I can't work the knob. He's shaking the door handle. She's shaking the door handle. Neddy's screaming. He leaps in, smashes the side window. Some definite hints of the end of the Flintstones there, where the cat tricks Fred. And maybe reference even to the Simpsons parody of the Flintstones, where Homer crashes his car into a tree while singing the Flintstones song. But anyway,
I did think about that, saying it's again a weird Ned Homer parallel. They've both done that.
Yeah,
same thing.
I watched the end of the Flintstones again because I seem to remember Fred doesn't jump in through the window. The cat jumps in through the window. But you would think that it is very, very similar, the setup there.
Yeah.
But I don't know where they're going with it. Anyway, what do you make of that?
The most important question is, do you believe her?
Well, the thing is, and this is the sociopath theory, this is the thing from that Simpsons video, is that Maude could easily have got one of the boys to help her, or usually she's calm under pressure. This is the first time we've ever really seen Maude crack. And so the question is, is she genuinely cracking under the pressure and can't perform this simple task? Or is this just another attempt to get rid of Neddy?
I'm on the fence, because it would make sense for Ned, Rod and Todd to react this strongly. But for Maude, I think she would look outside and see the bear and assess the situation and think, is it really this bad? So I don't necessarily, maybe she's just sort of messing with him. that she knows he's going to be fine. And maybe this again, like, do you remember when the elephant walked past and he thought it was the end of the world, and she very just calmly said, no, it isn't. Maybe it's another situation like this, and she's just sort of, these are the times that he irritates her, so she's just sort of messing with him and thinking, like, he's going to be fine, so I'm just going to make him stay out there for a couple more seconds and watch him squirm a little bit. But then obviously he takes things too far and destroys, within like a minute and a half, the car and the front of the house.
Well, the thing is that he smashes the car and he's crawling in. I'd like to say that it's at face value. That and everything, if we didn't see the bunker scene, everything else would have led us to thinking it's face value. It's only really the bunker scene where she was ready to send him out. And I don't think any of the evidence in that good versus bad Maude holds up very much other than the bunker one. That's the key one where she really sends Ned out to die with very little thought, heartless.
Yeah.
But in this case, that's the only thing that throws the whole thing up in the air. Without that, it's like, no, she's definitely just panicking and she wants to help Neddy. But she's more concerned now than she was when her son was wrapped up tightly in a blanket and heading down the river to his demise.
Yeah, which was much more dangerous. And to be fair, without going into spoiler territory, one of the next clips sort of displays that she probably did believe him in the sort of the way that she is in the next clip we're going to be looking at next week. Sort of does say that she believed the fear and that they did live in this sort of heightened fear for a good couple of hours, and that maybe they didn't think that it was too intense. But we'll look into that next week. But yeah, it's hard to believe that she just can't open the door. That's the problem.
I guess
Unless they are, maybe he's turning it and she's turning it the other way, and they're both sort of together. That's why the door isn't opening.
But you could also imagine, although it's hard to see on the inside of the door, that they might have some pretty heavy-duty locks. They might have some. They're very security conscious. They've got a bunker. They've got a panic room. So it could be that this lock is really quite hard to open.
Yeah, and if she is that nervous, then maybe it would take longer, but it just seems to take a very long time.
The irony of being so secure that it means that you actually get mauled to death by a grizzly.
And again, this is a family who's clearly very fearful of death. So what happens to them in the future is very unfortunate.
The worst, really.
Yeah, the worst case scenario twice for Neddy.
I know. Bad times, isn't it? No spoilers. That's all done and dusted now. The burr is being dragged into a Forest Service van, and then the van drives away, and then we see that Maude is there in a prime position. She's managed to position herself as she did with the Mr. Burns episode, right there to watch. All our favourites are there, and that drunk dude who seems to be in clips a lot more than I thought. What's his name with the comb over?
Yeah, Larry, I think. He's been quite consistently around this entire season, I think, around Maude. Maybe he's the new Edna.
The Larry cast, although Edna is very close in a lot of these as well, especially when we get into the ones at the town hall in a little bit. So the van drives away to reveal the Moe's van and two chaps hauling Barney in. Now, is that just a side gag, or had Barney also been shot at some point by a tranquilizer?
Yeah, I think they shot Barney by accident with the tranquilizer gun, and then they shot the bear.
Maude's looking on wide-eyed. She looks a little bit like Hugh Laurie in Blackadder. She goes for the double hand touch on Marge's shoulders, and she says, Marge, oh, Marge. Marge is not overly bothered by this. She's kind of grumbling. Maybe she's remembering the time when Maude kicked her out of her house, which can't have been too long ago. There's big bags under Maude's eyes. Oh, Marge, it was horrible. We were trapped in the house all afternoon. It's been very, very dramatic. And we had to drink toilet water. Why? I asked myself. Marge is not actually caring too much about anything, but she does put her arms on Maude's shoulders in return, and then she says, well, things were bad everywhere. Yeah, she sounds irritated by Maude's whinging at this, because again, she is being very overdramatic. This sort of also hints that she didn't try to
kill Ned and that she was just living in this real sense of fear about this bear. They were only trapped in the house for the same amount of time they would spend in the house. So drinking toilet water, I don't understand, like, why would the water not be on? Seems like they made an actual choice to drink toilet water. There's nothing happened to the water supply.
Yeah, there's not a lot of sense to any of that, really.
No.
Maude looks visibly like they've had a horrible time, and I imagine them all cowering under the table, which again leads some credence to Maude not wanting to lock Ned out. But of course, once Ned got in, she had to pretend that, you know, she was on board with it. So either way, who knows?
Why she's more scared of this bear than the comet doesn't make a lot of sense to me. Like, this would have been a more apt reaction of them in the bomb shelter, but they were all just sitting calmly waiting for death in the bomb shelter.
True, but they felt they were protected. I don't know, did the bear viciously continue to try to get in through the door? Was it reaching his arm around and trying to grab them? And if so, they had quite a big house to hide in, including a bunker and a panic room and a Beatles room. So I'm with Marge on this one. I think it's hard to see that if this is a genuine reaction. It's hard to see why Maude crumbled. Like we said last week, she's been really very stoic about pretty much everything so far, and it just seems to be this. Is there some troubling animal incident in her past which may have triggered her?
Well, maybe, but I imagine she spent quite a lot of childhood visiting Magdalena, and maybe there was some kind of bear attack.
Maybe.
This is a genuine fear. This is the most scared we've ever seen her about anything.
Exactly. She's driven her car through trains. She's sent her kid down a river wrapped in blankets. She's been threatened by a serial killer. No, it was the bear that triggered it. So something went on, some deep, dark, repressed memory. And who knows, maybe we'll find out about it later in her diary or something like that.
Maybe.
Homer has his hands on his hips and he says, I am sick of these constant bear attacks. It's like a freaking bear jamboree around here. Ned, the voice of reason, steps in. Well, now, realistically, Homer, I've lived around here for nigh on 30 years. Revelation. And this is the first and only bear I've ever seen.
Ned, at this point now, is super calm compared to Maude.
Maude's not
She's crying still.
She's crying. Maybe she's not that calm, really. Hey, if you want wild bears eating your children and scaring away your salmon, pokes Ned with a finger, that's your business. Marge looks on. Maude is just out of shot. What's she thinking? Homer says, I'm not going to take it. Who's with me? Everyone raises their arms except for Maude and Ned and Marge. Ruth Powers raises both of her arms. She is very in. Skinner, Apu, comic book guy, they're all well into it. We know that Maude's not raising her arm means nothing, because as soon as a mob is gathered, she's going to join it regardless.
Yeah.
30 years they've lived there, or Ned's lived there for 30 years now. What's the deal?
That sort of, again, that just fits correctly into our thing, doesn't it? If he's 60.
No, it doesn't. No, it doesn't.
Like,
because if Maude's lived with him, if Maude's lived there with him for 30 years, then that doesn't make any sense, because Maude's like Homer and Marge's age, we established, right? Maybe a little older, but she's still, she would have, 30 years ago, she would have still only been 10.
At the oldest. So that sort of implies that we were wrong, or Maude herself was wrong in her diary about inheriting the house from Jasper. Maybe she was lying a little bit and Ned already lived there.
Maybe they lived in a different house in Springfield. Maybe Ned lived in Springfield. And see, the thing is, the other week you talked about them living, you said that house had to be their current house, the Christmas episode, because you can see the Simpsons house out of the window. But when I looked out the window, they just look like generic Springfield houses. How do you know it's not in another part of Springfield and they've never met before? And the house looking out of the window just looks a bit like the Simpsons house.
That is possible, but I just thought it does look exactly like the Simpsons house, was my logic. Like, I looked at it and they've got more to do with the sort of fencing in between and the shape and the colour. They seem to, maybe in a similar way to none of the other characters have yellow hair because of the Simpsons. So maybe none of the other houses are the same colour.
Maybe. And also, we know that Maggie is 8 years younger or so, and they were already in the house well established at that point. So, but there's a chance that Ned lived in Springfield by himself, because we don't know where he comes from. Could have been living in Springfield solo for quite a long time.
True. Well, we do see him as a younger man living in Springfield as well, so that would make a lot of sense. So maybe his parents, maybe that's his childhood home. Maybe he moved out with Maude for a couple of years, and then they moved back into the house when the hippies went to Woodstock or whatever.
We do know that Ned went to Oral Roberts University, the same as Maude, so there's a very good chance that he met Maude there and then returned back to Springfield.
Yeah.
Is this the same episode with a tiger rock where Lisa says this is rock that keeps away tigers, and Homer says, I would like to buy that rock?
Yeah.
Love
And
that.
it's also when he says, the birds pay the bird tax, I pay the Homer tax. She says it's the homeowner tax.
Nice. That's like, it's a good play on words tag. My favorite play on words joke is from Friends, where Chandler says, I can handle it. Handle is my middle name. No, actually, Handel is the middle part of my first name.
That is good.
Very good.
I don't
Very good
remember
job.
that, yeah.
Very clever. So then the mob gets together. Maude seems like she's calmed down at this point and she's ready to join the mob, but really, who knows? What's her tension at this point? How's she feeling about all this?
I think she's just ready to take action. Like she's always part of the mob, but this mob she's front and center of.
F&C.
Especially in this clip that we're going to look at now, she's one of the front four characters. And I don't really recall seeing Ned, but I wasn't looking for him.
He's around,
but yeah,
but he's not quite as far to the front.
I think she's that fearful of what happening again that she's ready to just kick off with Quimby again.
She'll take it to him. She's not afraid of a fight for things that matter or just don't matter, occasionally matter. Clip 2, marching on the town hall. The mob chants, we're here, we're queer, we don't want any more burrs. The mob charges into the town hall. Maude is angry, possibly the angriest we've ever seen her. Teeth gritted, brow furrowed. Edna right behind her. Seymour right in front of her. Hey, Homer, that's a pretty catchy chant, says Lenny. Where'd you hear it? Oh, I heard it at the mustache parade they have every year. Maude is right in shot behind Homer J. Simpson. She's crazy-eyed. No longer as angry as she was a few seconds ago, but still right there.
It's interesting again, like this is the closest her and Homer have come to working as a team so far that we've seen. Like they both have the same goal, maybe for the first time in a long time.
They get a lot closer soon.
And with Homer's loudness and stupidity and Maude's sort of willingness in these situations to speak a mind and not be, walked over, they probably would make quite a good protesting team.
They would, like an odd couple. They'd work together to balance each other out and magnify each other's strengths. Almost certainly they would be at each other's throats. Like,
yes, there's a scene I would like to delve into at some point. A Maude Homer team up.
Yeah, surprising they haven't done it. When they bring her back from the dead, I'm sure there'll be some opportunities for it.
Here's a fun interjection. This modcast was recorded in late December 2020. The episode Manger Things aired 3 months later, and it features, you guessed it, a Homer and Maude team-up story. Now that's how you groggily a poncho.
We see Mayor Quimby with a bottle of whiteout, and he's whiting out all kinds of stuff in his papers, not sure what it is. His assistant opens the door and says, Sir, there's an unruly mob to see you. Quimby says, do they have an appointment? And
they did.
And he says, yes, it does. Skinner pops their head around and says, I phoned ahead. Maude is right there in front of Homer, and she cannot wait. She is the first one through that door after Homer. He slams open the door and he says, Mr. Mayor. Maude is goofy-eyed and now smiling. What's going on here? She's gone from absolute terror to rage to joy in the space of minutes. Homer, Mr. Mayor, I hate to break it to you, but your city is infested with burrs. Prodding the desk. Maude right there, step for step, and smiling. Mo, these are smarter than the average burr. He swiped my picnic basket. And here is the quote that we thought Maude had said, but is Helen Lovejoy, or I thought. You knew it wasn't Maude. Oh, think of the children. Quimby spins around. Very well, he says. Maude is right in front of him. We get a classic back of the head shot. I promise quick and decisive action against these hibernating hucksters. All cheers. Maude hugs and possibly kisses Homer J. Simpson before heading out, incredibly excited. What in sweet bejazzles is going on here?
This is insanity.
Insanity.
This is the closest she will ever come to being a friend of Homer, I think, ever. And she's very smiley when she goes in. I think it's sort of more of a polite game face than anything else, rather than going in all guns blazing. But she does tend to usually do that if she's in this sort of mood. So Maybe she just started thinking about something else for a couple of minutes.
She zoned out away from the terror, but she was definitely on high red alert. Homer helping her with Quimby, she let down all defenses and she gave him a hug. A hug. She hugged Homer Simpson. What must he have felt about that? His dreams must have come true there, having such a saucy lady hugging him. Does she kiss him? Does she give him a peck on the cheek?
I thought it was just a hug, but it's worth looking back at. I'll see how it looks when I get the imagery for the visuals for this podcast. I always thought it was just a hug.
These older ones are a little bit harder to see in detail because the resolution isn't quite as high.
Exactly. She does say, think of the children once.
Really?
But it isn't that dramatic. It's in a Halloween one that we haven't looked at, the Coven one that we... Mo has a good episode, this episode. One of the funniest episodes of him. The forefront of the stupidity and the hypocrisy. Because, he has to take the illegal immigrant test to stay. So he is an immigrant, which is why he's... Like the bravado of him desperately trying to say, they are the problem. It's him just trying to hide things. No real Maude interaction for Mo. Yeah, she's surrounded by people she usually hates at this point, other than Edna. There's a possibility that Maude is somewhat angry at Margie's response to her opening up a little bit ago. So this hug is a somewhat sneaky, tactical revenge hug, because Marge might somehow find out about this. It'll cause problems. Maude is using her body as a weapon.
Is that something she does often?
It would be very easy for Maude to get what she wanted out of Homer and Mo, but she only uses it when she's not really got another plan. Like she wants Homer to be attracted to her so that Marge will be irritated.
Yeah, are there any other examples where she does that you know of?
I can't even think of another time she's hugged someone.
No, this is the crazy thing. She shows very, very little affection to anybody. She really must have been terrified of these Burrs. I really do wonder what went on back in the recesses of her head mind.
I can't really picture her hugging Ned.
I can't imagine they're an Amanda hug and kiss couple.
No, they have the moments, but not. This is the most physically affectionate we've seen her towards anybody in town, and it happened to be Homer J.
Enemy. Quimby laughs. He has the picnic basket. Obviously, Mo's quote earlier is a Yogi Bear reference. It turns out that this Burr has not taken it, and Quimby chuckles as he begins to eat a sandwich.
Yeah, the mustache parade line is great as well at the start. The kind of sweet naivety of Homer just sort of enjoying himself and not acknowledging where he is. Like he was just there and having fun, and he took this quote. But
of course, Springfield is also the place that would actually have a mustache parade.
Yeah, that is true. That Ned would probably be heavily involved with.
Exactly.
Alongside Luigi and
Cletus.
Cletus has like a beard, doesn't he? Like a yokel sort of.
Little wispy tash.
Yeah.
Does no other mustached characters in Springfield? Is that true?
The guy who says yes has a mustache.
Okay.
But no, I can't particularly think of any. Ned's father.
All of the Flanders.
Future Rod and Todd.
Exactly. Clip 3. Quimby steams out of the door. Maude steps back, shocked by Quimby's exit from the building. People, your taxes are high because of illegal immigrants, he says, hitting his hands together, and we need to get rid of them. Maude stirs with her mouth wide open, and the chattering begins. Mo says, immigrants, I knew it was them. Even when it was the Burr, I knew it was them. Helen once again shouts, oh, won't somebody think of the children? I'm sure Maude would think this was going way over the top and become quite judgmental of Helen at this point. 1 week from now, the town will vote to remove all illegal immigrants from Springfield. We get a classic back of the head shot as Proposition 24 is rolled out.
Yes. I think that, again, Helen and Maude have been equally emotional in this episode. And again, we've not seen this from Helen before, really. Helen's usually, angrier than Maude, but she's not usually sort of... the delivery of this line is great, that she's so... You'd think this would be, again, the power of three thing. This seems like it should be the third time she said it, and it's this. Crazy, but it was sort of the second one. And so I don't think Maude would be judging Helen too much. I think she would sort of, if she's that fearful of Burrs, maybe she thinks that's the appropriate level to be at.
She thinks they should be at DEFCON 1.
Yeah. Again, Maude is a sheeple person in this episode, and she just sort of believes what she's told in all situations from the looks of things. That she believes Quimby is going to deal with the Burrs, and then when she doesn't want to pay the taxes. The reason they're back at the hall now is because he brought in a Burr tax, like I said, and everybody decided that they didn't want to pay the Burr tax. So that's why they're there now, and that's why he says the immigration thing.
The whole episode's a really good kind of satire on the mentality of knee-jerk reactions, non-realistic solutions about how those are going to be paid for. Lowering taxes while at the same time spending more.
It's strange. If Maude is so scared of Burrs, I don't think she'd mind paying a tax. So I think she's just part of this mob because she likes being a part of mobs. I don't think she's actually too bothered about paying this tax because it protects her from Burrs.
You don't really see it broken down like that, do you? I don't know. I'm imagining they don't have it broken down to this is how much is your Burr tax. They just say your taxes are high. I mean, the real reason is because Quimby's almost certainly siphoning off stacks of cash into his offshore accounts. The immigrants are the easy kind of lazy finger pointing.
I think normally you'd be right, but I think we do actually see Homer open his tax envelope for the month. It says Burr tax on it because he questions what the hell is this Burr tax? It does actually break down it separates Burr tax as its own thing, but I can't remember how much it said it cost, but I'm pretty sure it was like a couple of dollars.
People complaining about taxes being too high. It's interesting that they haven't put some kind of suggestion of corruption being the cause of it, because I imagine Springfield doesn't invest a lot of money in its infrastructure or its education and things like that. Diamond Joe is benefiting.
Yeah, and he seems to get away with it. Nobody ever seems to point the finger at him. They do think that he's a pretty good mayor.
He'll just do a runner. The going gets hot.
Yes. Other deductions, Burr Patrol tax, $5. Is what appears on the bill that he gets.
All right. When I was applying for a visa for a family member in the United Kingdom, the first time I went, it was quite cheap. It was £100 or something. Within a few years, it had risen to like 1,000. And what they said when I asked about it was that they were going to use that money to help get rid of illegal immigrants, which involved just putting some scary stuff on a van and driving it around everywhere.
Yeah.
So hoping that someone would see the van and then just say, yes, my number's up here. Mission accomplished. Well then, United Kingdom Immigration Services. Another well thought out and well executed plan.
Precisely.
Clip 4. Cut to a garden. Welcome to America, Apu. I am now an Indian American. Hear, hear, everyone says. And a tiny Maude, almost hidden by Mo, clapping along.
That's the entire clip it is, isn't it?
Yeah, that's the entire clip.
Yeah, we've skipped on to the end of the episode now. And Apu was taking his immigration test and passed, so he is now a citizen. And Maude is one of the people he has chosen to come and celebrate that with for whatever reason. Yeah, once the immigration thing came in, we didn't see Maude again. She just went about her business until this point. And she's obviously calmed down a lot now.
It's all forgotten. Could have been days, weeks, months, years before this has come. And the fact that there have been no more Burr attacks mean that the Burr tax is definitely working. Like exactly. What they did with the Burr. Did they put like Burr vans out there or something?
I remember there being a plane, like a Burr Patrol plane. I'm pretty sure it flies past I might have cut it out. It was like a second before this clip starts. The clip at 3, when they go and talk about the immigration. There's a Burr Patrol plane flying around the town.
Nice. Rock and roll. So clip 5, they're still in the garden. Homer is tapping on a duff can and he shouts, "Hi everyone, could I just say a few words?" Ned appears to have a duff can in front of him. Are we ready for another Ann Landers rerun? The weird thing is that the cans keep moving around and changing, but at some point Ned has a beer can, a red beer can in front of him. Maude is being attentive. Seems like she's still supporting Homer, and Homer makes some crack about being a better public speaker. Maude at one point looks like she's holding a duff can, but then we cut and we see that there's a kind of Buzz Cola maybe in front of her, so it's hard to say if she's drinking duff or Buzz Cola. Homer says, "Most of us who were born in America, we take this country for granted." Maude has no movement, no expression at this point. But, we talked a little bit about her, how much she loves Springfield and respects its history. I'd like to know a little bit more about her patriotism. But Apu is not taking this country for granted. He has not lived here his whole life. And while the rest of us are drinking ourselves stupid, cut to Barney, immigrants are driving the cabs that get us home safely, writing the operas that entertain us every day. Maude now looks like she's scowling at Homer. Has he lost her with this opera quip? Training our tigers and kicking our extra points, Homer's now up on the table, essentially waving his arse in Maude's face while talking about immigrants being the glue that holds society together. If we vote for Proposition 24, we'll be losing some of the truest Americans of all, and Maude cheers along with everyone else. So when you go to the polls, vote no on 24. And they're chanting, no on 24. Maude is banging on the table. A lot in there.
It was a hefty scene. My favourite non-Maude thing about this scene is that Homer really makes Bart laugh with that kind of like crappy joke. Maude doesn't really respond to it, along with everybody else. She's not from a family of immigrant in the way that many other characters are, including Homer, in that I think it was Abe and his father, who I believe is called Orville, came from like Ireland or something on a boat. We've established that Maude's relative come from Native American descent. So I think Maude doesn't really understand, but I don't think she's a get out of my country kind of person. Again, I think she judges each and every person she sees by their merit, but she does a lot of judging books by the covers. So maybe it's not always good judgment, but I think she gives everybody the same kind of fair judgment. There's no preconceived bias or hatred other than if you're a Homer Simpson relative.
So she'll judge you harshly, but mostly on things you've said and done, and not on your skin color or even your lifestyle preferences.
She will judge you from what she's seeing directly in front of her.
She's a what you see is what there is kind of person.
Yeah, and the town does vote. There's a landslide vote for yes on 24. So we don't know where she voted.
Like 95% yes on something like that.
Something like that. So we don't know where Maude stood on that. But
Willie gets deported, right?
Yeah, that's how it ended.
But he
finally got caught. He's back without any sort of question. Because, again, the only permanent change this programme seemed to stick to was the death of Maude Flanders.
So what about this beer kind of thing? Do you think that can in her hand? Like, I've got the clip and the can. It's you can see the red in Ned's. You can see the red thing popping at the top. But with Maude, you can't see what colour it is. And the can's magically moving around the table. But that could be because it's different times. But what's your take on that? Is she drinking Buzz Cola? Is she drinking Duff beer?
Both of them are quite shocking for Maude, to be honest, because one of them's full of sugar, the other one's full of alcohol. So there is the possibility, maybe this, I don't know when things began existing, but maybe they took some alcohol-free beers with them to be, like a communal celebration, be part of the gang, but they didn't want to get drunk. It is the middle of the afternoon from the looks of things as well.
Duff Zero. Alcohol-free Duff? I don't think so. Duffman says no.
No. But soda seems like her drinking a Buzz Cola is equally as unusual as her drinking a Duff.
Let's just say that the jury is still out. When you look back through, you might be able to work out which one it is and come down. Is she on a sugar rush or is she a booze hound? On the clip that I see, Ned isn't holding a can anymore. So maybe she's just holding while he ties his shoelaces.
Maybe. Or again, things are moving around a lot. Maybe it's somebody else's and she's just politely passing it over or monitoring it.
Let's give her the benefit of the doubt. So that's a lot of content there. And is that the end of the episode?
Yeah, that's it. She's done. We only have one more season 7 appearance to look at.
That's absolutely right, Saz. There is only one more Maude appearance in season 7. And it comes in the finale, Summer of Fufutu, written by Dan Greeny. Directed by Mark Kirkland, originally aired the 19th of May 1996.
There's a room, to my eyes, covered in Post-it notes. I'm not sure what was going on there. A living room with saloon bar kind of swinging doors. Nobody's in there. The Simpson family seems to be arriving, and there's 2 big photos on the wall. One of them is Ned and the boys with a big fish on a pier. There's some kind of nautical fishing theme going through this thing. And then the other picture is the 4 Flanders, including Maude in a classic stance. Maude's wearing her regular clothes and in a regular Maude stance, everything is above board. There's a nice glass top table. There's a little boat on the shelf. Maude has a tiny face and looks even more like Hugh Laurie in Blackadder 3 in this one.
Nice and short. This is the Flanders have a summer home, and this is that on the beach. And I think it may be out of Springfield, but still in another fictional place. Ned said to Homer, "Would you like to stay there for a week because we can't go?" And Homer said, "Well, are you going to pay us for doing you a favour?" Something along those lines. And then they end up going, and Ned has left post-it notes everywhere to help them out.
What do some of these post-it notes say?
There's the only ones I can kind of remember you seeing are Marge goes to the fridge. The one on the fridge says, "Put food in me," and Homer says, "I'll take that," and just puts it on himself. And then Marge opens ice cube trays, and they say, "Fill me," and Marge says, well, duh, Ned, with what?" And then she realizes there's a second note underneath it saying, "With water."
Very clever. Do you think Maude had a hand in these post-its, or is it strictly Ned?
Well, I think that it's Ned. I think it was just a Ned thing more than a collaborative act. So I think it was just Ned on this occasion. Yeah, we get a glimpse of, again, they have a summer home, which is quite an elaborate purchase for a family that are supposed to shy away from riches.
Well, you suggested that you felt that this was in a fictional world, so you're not suggesting that somehow it exists in our world, which is good. So in the fictional world of The Simpsons, whereabouts is this summer house?
I believe we are told, I think it's a stupidly long place.
Can you flash it up on the screen right now while we're talking?
I certainly can.
Sweet.
I was trying to find it, but every time I type, there's a website called Frinkiac, which is like the Simpsons Google.
Nice.
And for some reason, whenever I type in a specific quote that I definitely know from an episode, it doesn't show that episode.
Maybe that's the trick. Maybe it's Professor John Frink mucking with you.
Perhaps. I'm on to it now. Where is it? Little Puagmata Squam Setport. That's where they are.
It's a great name. Great name. I wonder what we can find out about this town and whether Maude spent any fun vacations and summers there. Obviously, the boys have been there because of the fishing picture, but who knows how much time Maude spent there. How far away is it, do you think, from Springfield?
I would say it's maybe an hour's drive. I don't think it's too far away.
What's that based on?
Nothing.
So we don't see time passing. They just drive out and get there.
Yeah, I don't see them getting a summer home too far away. I don't see them wanting to travel too far.
Is this on the beach, as in the actual sea?
Yes.
Because if so, that gives the game away, doesn't it?
On the coast.
An hour away from the coast?
Yes, perhaps. But then again, the sea is also occasionally seen in Springfield, so maybe they're already on the coast.
It's madness. The whole thing's madness, and we're going to lose our very minds trying to piece this together. Shall we move on?
Yes.
Because this is from the same episode now. They're in the bedroom. The Simpson family are in the house. Marge is making the beds, and Lisa's sat there. She's bored. And there's two single beds in this room. And I'm assuming that this is the holiday room of Maude and Ned, because Maude's photo is over one bed and Ned is over the other. I found it strange that they had single beds while they were on holiday, but they have a double bed when they're in their house. Maybe they top up on their piety when they're on holiday, and they don't want to trouble the baby Jesus during that time.
I would agree. I think that if any family was going to have single beds, it would be the Flanders or the Van Houtens.
For different reasons.
Wildly different reasons.
Exactly. There's an anchor on the wall, continuing the nautical theme, but now that I know it's a beach house, that makes more sense. Lisa has a briefcase, not related to Maude, but I'm interested. Magically, as the camera flips around and Marge is making the bed, the picture changes from one of Maude into Rod and Todd. Spooky.
Yeah, again, this reminded me of Twin Peaks: The Return, when everything's sort of a little bit off. I remember there's a scene with a guy sat in a gas station, and sort of the world glitches outside, but only if you look at it properly.
Right.
And it feels a bit like this, like something's glitched. Either that, or it's one of those pictures where you when you turn them and they change. But that seems like an elaborate thing to set up for just a portrait on a wall.
It's really creepy. It's not the kind of thing that the Flanders would go in for. And I was thinking, did we see a time displacement? Because I imagine that the picture of Maude might have arrived after she died. Like they would have a picture of the boys up there, maybe, and then when she died, glitched into Maude, or vice versa. Who knows what went on? But it is very strange.
Yeah.
One thing's for sure, it's not simply a mistake. It was clearly done on purpose.
It must have been. And I think we've already seen that in Lisa's room. So I think, this is Homer and Marge's room. And I did make a note of the anchor on the wall and said, do we think that she's into sailing in any way?
I can imagine her. She's got the right fashion sense to be a yachter, a sailor. I wouldn't put it past her. You know, the thing is that Neddy is in his 60s, right? And he's lived a pretty conservative life. I imagine he's got some good savings, although that could have been wiped out by the leftorium nonsense. We don't know a lot about Maude's background. Maybe she has some cash saved, or maybe she inherited a lot of cash. You know, does she have any rich aunts and uncles who might have given her a stack of cash that she invested in a beach house and a yacht? I think that's more likely. For me, it's more likely that Maude is the one who pushed for this beach house and the inevitable accompanying yacht.
Perhaps. I think it's more likely that, they inherited either cash or the beach house itself from somebody. So it seems more likely. We've seen Ned's parents and they're quite hippie-ish, and I don't think they would invest in a beach house. They don't seem like that kind of couple. So I would place this on Maude's side somewhere.
Well, we dig into that another time.
Dig we will, Brent. Dig we will. Well, I hope you enjoyed this sufficiently long trundle through Season 7 of The Simpsons. Via the eyeballs of Model and Jehoshaphat Dinah Radamanthus Goodman. I have been Groggily Poncho. You have been whoever you claim to be. Good, well, and fair, bye.